Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Beast Control. I'm really not a master of training. Chapter 41. Astonished, Li Qian ran straight over without any time to think. While running, he used the soul contract to sense it. Fortunately, nothing happened to Kizai. But the situation of the birdtail is unknown. After all, he didn't sign a contract with it. Lu Chengfeng also followed closely behind. He frowned and asked, "What's going on?" While speaking, the summoning circle under his feet had dimly lit up. Li Qian shook his head. At this moment, he was also confused. Bang, bang, the two of them had just arrived at the reservoir. Before they had time to observe, two huge waves exploded not far away. This time, Li Qian clearly felt it. There are familiar energy fluctuations. It's Kizai. Kizai is fighting something. Wow, wow. Two sounds of water breaking immediately followed. One of them is Kizai. The other one is even bigger than Kizai, 5 to 6 meters tall and estimated to be over 15 meters long. The pet beast that suddenly appeared looks like a crocodile but not a crocodile, and looks like a lizard but not a lizard. Li Qian looked shocked. That's it. He did not recognize the identity of this huge pet beast. But just by looking at its size, feeling its aura, and combining it with the fact that the eye of true sight cannot peek into the information, one can draw a conclusion. This guy is terrifyingly powerful. Fortunately, it chose to attack at this time. Standing next to him was Lu Chengfeng. Otherwise, he would have just put away Kizai and Finch and ran away. Savage salamander. Unlike Li Qian, the well-informed Lu Chengfeng recognized the identity of this pet beast immediately. He observed it for a moment, then frowned deeper. No, this violent salamander is in the wrong state. It's a cultist. In fact, not only Lu Chengfeng but also Li Qian could tell that the violent salamander in front of him was not in the right state. It was wrapped in strange black energy all over its body. The eyes were red and glowing fiercely. It looked like he had completely lost his mind. Ho ho ho. The violent salamander kept roaring angrily, as if it was in pain all the time and unable to escape. Looking at the state of the violent nude at this moment, Li Qian suddenly thought of something. Black God Sect. Seeing Lu Chengfeng cast an inquiring look at him, he explained succinctly, "I once rescued a sparrow fish here, and it was a test subject of the Black God Sect." At the moment Li Qian finished speaking, the sound of water breaking sounded again, and a fish head emerged from the water. It's the finch. Li Qian could feel that there was something wrong with Birdtail's condition. His breath was dying, and he must have been injured. From this, it can be seen that this violent salamander, or more precisely, the cultist behind it, is indeed aimed at the sparrow fish. Of course, there was another guess that Li Qian didn't think about deeply. The other party came to deal with the sparrow fish, most likely because of the black bead. But the more the other party pays attention to it, the more it proves that black beads are not simple. It's probably some great treasure. Li Qian would not hand it over unless absolutely necessary. Upon hearing this, Lu Chengfeng felt that it was a bit strange to go to such great lengths for an experimental subject, but he basically identified the attackers behind him. Then it's most likely them. Without any time to think, he directly summoned his two pet beasts. Fire Mastiff. Diamond Ape. The Fire Mastiff is a bit limited in this environment, and its attributes are also restrained by the dark and water-type violent salamander. So Lu Chengfeng directly asked the gold-type Vajra ape to deal with it. Little Jinzi, come on. As he finished speaking, the huge ape with golden hair picked up the stick and pounced out. In the reservoir, although the gold-type Vajra ape is also restricted, it is definitely better than the fire-type Fire Mastiff. The Vajra ape and I are holding down the violent newt. You and my Fire Mastiff will go to investigate and see if you can find out the cultist who controls this violent salamander. Lu Chengfeng commanded the Vajra ape and the violent salamander. The newts fought together and did not forget to remind them. Upon hearing this, Li Qian quickly rushed towards the housing area of the hydropower station with the Fire Mastiff. The cultists were hiding in the dark. If they wanted to control the violent salamander, they couldn't get too far away. Looking around, the only place where people can hide is the hydropower station area not far away. So Li Qian just rushed away without thinking. The cultists hiding in the dark may also know that continuing to hide at this time is tantamount to hiding their ears and stealing the bell, so they simply jump out and fall on the dam. No need to look for it, I'm right here. The black god cultist in black robes landed on the dam. He looked at Li Qian and made a hoarse voice. In fact, at this time, he was quite speechless in his heart. I thought that if I took action as a leader-level deacon, I would be able to defeat a high school student who was only an ordinary-level student at best. Unexpectedly, I met someone from the Public Security Bureau. Yes, after seeing the pet beast summoned by Lu Changfeng, he had already recognized the former's identity. If he had recognized his identity earlier, he would have suppressed this attack for the time being. Wait until this guy leaves before taking action. Unfortunately, now, it's too late to say anything. Once the attack has begun, it cannot be stopped midway. Otherwise, if you alert the enemy, there won't be such a good opportunity next. The cultist landed on the dam, the summoning circle lit up, and a second pet beast suddenly appeared. Be careful, that's the Gale Wolf, commander level. Sensing the energy fluctuations emitted by the sudden appearance of the second pet beast through the equipment on his body, Lu Chengfeng shouted loudly and warned. Now, it's a bit troublesome. Li Qian frowned when he saw this. This guy is likely to destroy the reservoir dam as a threat. This reservoir dam is all made of reinforced concrete and looks extremely strong, but it cannot withstand a few blows from the commander-level Storm Wolf. If the dam is destroyed, it will undoubtedly be a disaster for the entire Lingshui city. Fortunately, the Lingshui River passes by the city instead of passing through it, otherwise the disaster would be doubled. Even so, it should definitely be avoided if possible. At this moment, although Li Qian and Lu Chengfeng did not communicate, they reached a rare tacit understanding. The fire mastiff launched the attack first, and a thick pillar of fire shot out, directly hitting the Gale Wolf and the Black God cultist standing beside the Gale Wolf. It is the skill, Flame Jet. At the same time, Kizai also launched an attack in cooperation. The huge wind blade, nearly 2 meters long, shot past at extremely fast speeds. It is the skill, Fire Wind Slash. In order to cooperate with the Fire Mastiff, water skills must not be used at this time. You can only use wind skills. As for the bird tails, they could only watch. There is not a single non-water skill in its body. At this time, rashly activating skills may actually be detrimental. Of course it's not useless at all. Birdfish, please help me be vigilant and pay attention to other pet beasts that may appear at any time. Li Qian has not forgotten that the cultist of the Black God sect in front of him has a leader-level strength. In addition to the violent salamander and the storm wolf, he also has a third pet beast. The battle started in full force. While Lu Chengfeng was directing the battle of the diamond ape, he shouted to Li Qian's position, "I have sent a message for help, we just need to hold him back." At this point, Lu Chengfeng suddenly realized something and suddenly changed his words, "No, I will hold him back, and you find a way to get out of here." Li Qian knew why Lu Chengfeng suddenly changed his words. But he knew very well that he couldn't avoid this matter at all. This cultist from the Black God religion came here for birdtail fish, or more precisely, for him. It's okay, I'm here to contain them and I can provide some help. Li Qian shook his head, "Don't underestimate the energy of Kizai and me." After saying that, he shouted secretly in his heart, "Tornado." Lu Chengfeng used Long Yan to sing in cooperation. The wind took advantage of the fire and instantly created a torrential storm, which was quite frightening. Dragon-shaped flames and dragon-shaped wind scrolls merged together, creating the effect of 1 + 1 being greater than 2. Even though the storm wolf is of the wind element, it has to be treated with dignity when faced with such a terrifying offensive. In the end, under the command of the cultist, the storm wolf chose to avoid the edge temporarily. It took its owner, jumped over the dam at extremely fast speed, and landed on the opposite bank of the reservoir. Kizai and Fire Mastiff gave chase without hesitation. Li Qian thought for a moment and did not follow immediately. Instead, he stayed not far away and commanded by remote control. Lu Chengfeng became even more eager when he saw that the ordinary 9th-level blue-scaled dragon could actually exert combat power comparable to that of a high-level elite. The cooperation with the Fire Mastiff was even more tacit. If he had contracted a blue-scaled dragon at this moment, he would definitely be even more powerful against the cultist of the Black God sect in front of him. Be careful. Seeing Li Qianyu's attitude of pursuing him, Lu Chengfeng reminded him again, "If you can contain him, then contain him." If you can't contain him, your own safety is the most important thing. Li Qian took Lu Chengfeng's words to heart. Don't dare to be careless in the slightest. The opponent's combat experience is far beyond what I can compare with. Listen to him and you will definitely be right. Facts have proved that there is indeed nothing wrong, because the next moment after the reminder, a black shadow quickly swept down from high in the sky and struck directly, accompanied by the sharp sound of birdsong. Chirp. Because of Lu Chengfeng's reminder, Li Qian reacted immediately. He looked at the sparrows in the water and commanded, high-pressure water cannon. At this moment, Birdtail acted like his contracted pet, instinctively using his high-pressure water cannon skills to meet the attacking black shadow. Be careful, that's the Elite 8 level big-mouthed kite. At the same time as the high-pressure water cannon was fired, Lu Chengfeng's reminder also came over. Bang! In midair, the high-pressure water cannon collided with the big-mouthed kite. The sharp and narrow beak of the big-billed kite directly pierced the high-pressure water cannon and shattered it. However, the big-billed kite was also repelled by the powerful kinetic energy contained in the high-pressure water cannon. Be careful, although the big-billed kite is a bird, it does not belong to the wind element but is a pet beast without attributes. Lu Chengfeng saw that the high-pressure water cannon had repelled the big-billed kite, and he was reassured and reminded at the same time. In this world of beast control, it does not mean that all pet beasts have different attributes. Some pet beasts are born with no specific attributes. Of course, this does not mean that pet beasts without attributes are weak. Pet beasts without attributes can theoretically learn any attribute skills. It is true that it may be difficult to learn, and the power of the same skill may be weaker than that of a pet with corresponding attributes, but as long as the combination of moves is reasonable, the power it can exert cannot be underestimated. And there's another advantage. There is no attribute restraint in the strict sense. It's very troublesome to deal with it this way, because you don't know what moves it knows at all. Just like now, in midair, the big-billed kite's claws glowed with golden luster, and it grabbed it again. It's a metallic steel claw. Seeing this, Li Qian didn't dare to show any signs of neglect. He commanded Birdtail again and fired a high-pressure water cannon. Worried, he also ordered him to add an ordinary water cannon. As it turns out, his caution was well-founded. Although the high-pressure water cannon hit the big-billed kite, it was torn apart by the steel claws. The sharp claws of the bird broke through the wind with fierce sounds. Although the remaining force was greatly reduced, it struck down with unusual determination. Fortunately, the second water cannon stopped its attack. The level gap is a bit big. It's still a bit difficult for an elite first-level sparrow to deal with an elite 8th level big-mouthed kite. Fortunately, the birdtail has the passive skill, Tide. Otherwise, it would not be able to sustain such a high-intensity battle for long. At the same time, on the other side, Lu Chengfeng was also in a tough fight. Looking at the fierce battle between the Vajra ape and the violent salamander in the water, his mind started to change rapidly. It must be attracted to the shore. Fortunately, the cultist was restrained by the fire mastiff and the blue-scaled dragon, and he did not have the energy to direct this animal. Otherwise, the situation might be even worse. The King Kong ape would be at a huge disadvantage fighting in this environment. Vajra body, thunder and strike, he shouted in his heart. The body of the Vajra ape was instantly covered with a layer of dazzling golden light, entering an explosive state. In this explosive state, the power, defense, and speed of the Vajra ape will be drastically improved. Of course, such a powerful move must have side effects. After the Vajra Overlord skill is used, the pet beast will fall into a period of weakness for 24 hours. Therefore, the battle must be ended within the duration of this skill. Thunder Strike is a skill that allows you to hit quickly. After being used, you can swing a dozen sticks in an instant. More than a dozen sticks were struck at the same location, and within a short period of time, a bang, bang, bang sound occurred. Ho ho ho. Although the violent salamander fell into chaos and lost its mind, it still felt pain. Under the pain, it roared even more violently. Retreat ashore. Seeing that the violent salamander became more violent and began to chase the diamond ape frantically, Lu Chengfeng was overjoyed and immediately issued an order. The violent salamander didn't hesitate, jumped up, and gave chase. Leaving the reservoir not only saves the dam, but also makes the violent salamander lose its environmental advantage. For the diamond ape, it is definitely a good opportunity to reverse the situation. On Lu Chengfeng's side, as the battle environment changed, he slowly began to take the initiative. On the other side, Huo Mastiff and Kizai were in a stalemate with the Black God cult cultists. Neither side can do anything about it. Kizai's side has a numerical advantage, while the Storm Wolf on the cultist side has a higher strength level. Finally, it was the battlefield where Li Qian and the birdtail fish faced the big-mouthed kite. Unlike the other two battlefields, the battle here fell into a passive situation without any surprise. Li Qian and birdtail Yu were overwhelmed, and could only resist. The difference in strength is too big. And the finch is not a pet that is good at fighting. Just when Li Qian was thinking about whether to join up with Kizai or Lu Chengfeng, a somewhat familiar voice suddenly rang, "Phantom Demon Fox, use mind control." Li Qian followed the sound and soon saw a familiar figure on the shore not far away. That's Gao Yaxin. Previously, Lu Chengfeng said that he had sent a message for help, and Li Qian knew that support would arrive soon. He originally thought that the people coming would be people from the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau, such as Zhou Weiping, whom he had met once. But he didn't expect that before the support from the Public Security Bureau arrived, someone would arrive first. Moreover, this person is also the person he consulted before, Gao Yaxin. Isn't she an intermediate breeder? Is he still a combat beast master? At this moment, there was a white fox standing next to her. The white fox is much larger than the average fox, almost as big as a calf. There is a strange red vertical mark between the eyebrows. This makes the white fox look even more eerie. This white fox is the phantom fox that Gao Yaxin just mentioned. The phantom fox, this kind of pet beast, Li Qian heard from teacher Lu Xinmin in the pet beast knowledge class. It is a very rare pet animal. The attribute is also relatively rare in the spiritual system. Just now, the mental control attack it launched was a mental skill, and the target it attacked was the big-mouthed kite facing Li Qian. I saw that after being controlled by the phantom fox's mind, the elite 8th level big-mouthed kite fell vertically from midair like a piece of wood. Boom! Impartially, the big-mouthed kite landed on the dam not far from Li Qian. Li Qian looked over subconsciously, and immediately found that the big-mouthed kite's eyes were already spinning in circles. Hiss! Seeing this scene, Li Qian couldn't help but take a breath. Simply, with a mind control skill, the elite 8th level big-mouthed kite was killed. The spiritual phantom fox was at least at the leadership level. Gao Yaxin's strength was a bit beyond his expectation. Sister Gao. After reacting, Li Qian didn't know what to say, so he shouted subconsciously. Super speed. Gao Yaxin gave the order to the phantom fox, and the latter turned into an afterimage and rushed over, targeting the cultist and the wind wolf. Seeing the phantom fox rushing to support Kizai and the others, Li Qian was relieved. Little brother, you really surprised me. Gao Yaxin ignored the phantom fox that had rushed to support Kizai and the fire mastiff. Instead, she walked quickly towards Li Qian and said as she walked, "I didn't expect you to study the blue-scaled dragon. It's true that people cannot be judged by their appearance, and seawater cannot be measured. It seems that Lingshui City is about to produce a nurturing genius. Kizai is fighting the storm wolf, everything is self-evident." Li Qian had no intention of hiding it. "Well, luckily, I researched it by chance," he said modestly. Gao Yaxin approached Li Qian, her bright eyes looking at him like searchlights. It seems that he wants to see clearly why the latter is so evil. But all this is destined to be in vain, because Li Qian is not a monster at all, he just has a plug-in. Good luck. No, there is no such thing as luck in breeding pet animals. There are so many breeders studying koi in the entire Eastern Xia Federation. Why are you the only one who is lucky? Besides, luck is also part of strength. At this point, the big wave woman added to herself, "Tisk, tisk, tisk." I don't know what the expressions of the Lingshui Breeders Association would be if they heard the news. Li Qian smiled awkwardly. "Sister Gao, please stop laughing at me." Gao Yaxin shook her head. "I'm not kidding you. We have studied the evolution method from koi carp to blue-scaled dragon. Even if you are only a high school student, there is a high probability that you will skip the apprenticeship and primary stages and directly become an intermediate breeder. The only pity is that you are only a high school student." If you are already a graduate of our Zhongnan Beast Control University's training major, maybe you can be promoted to a senior trainer with this achievement. Li Qian couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion after hearing this. But he was quickly restrained. A senior trainer is nothing. In the future, he will become a master trainer, or even a master trainer. Sister Gao, we'll talk about this later. Interrupting Gao Yaxin's half-joking words, Li Qian brought the chat back on track. The most important thing for us now is to keep this guy here. This guy is a cultist of the Black God sect. Just now, he suddenly launched an attack and attacked me and Birdtail Fish. Gao Yaxin smiled. Her smile was very charming. Don't worry, this guy can't fly without wings. It was while the two were having a conversation. Kizai's gale/assist, the fire mastiff's explosive sparks blocked the road, and the phantom fox's energy ball attacked. The three beasts cooperated and directly threw the gale wolf away, and then fell heavily to the ground. The gale wolf staggered and tried to stand up, but Kizai struck out with another strong wind slash, knocking it unconscious. Li Qian estimated that the gale wolf did not expect that he would fall at the hands of an ordinary 9th-level pet beast, which was a bit aggrieved. The storm wolf lost its fighting power, and the storm salamander was entangled by Lu Chengfeng again. At this time, the cultist of the Black God sect had become meat on the chopping board. His eyes were red and he made a fierce sound. The cult will not let you go. Gao Yaxin walked over unhurriedly. The Church of God will not let us go. I don't know. I only know that now, I will not let you go. After saying that, she suddenly waved her hand and ordered the phantom fox to send out a phantom wave. The phantom wave was accurate and hit the cultist of the Black God sect. The latter rolled his eyelids and fell straight down. Gao Yaxin did not kill him, but made him faint. After that, he will be handed over to the Public Security Bureau to see if they can dig out any information. Although this probability is not high. As soon as the battle here ended, the fire mastiff, who cared about its master, couldn't wait to rush to another battlefield. I believe that with the addition of the fire mastiff, in a 2-on-1 situation, the battle over there will soon end. Based on this, Li Qian did not rush over to help immediately. Gao Yaxin glanced at the unconscious cultist and suddenly spoke in a leisurely voice. During this period, I have actually discovered that there are traces of cultist activities in Lingshui City. Li Qian nodded. The news about Mother Han Yuying came from Gao Yaxin, so Li Qian was not surprised at all when the latter knew about it. But the latter's next words made his pupils shrink. I guess they are probably looking for something. You know, what are they looking for? Gao Yaxin looked at Li Qian with a smile on her lips, and there was a hint of meaning in her eyes. Seeing the faint smile on Gao Yaxin's face, Li Qian felt a chill all over his body, as if all the secrets had been seen through. There was a trace of struggle in his eyes, and after thinking for a moment, he had a calculation in his mind. Just as he was about to speak, a rapid roar of a car suddenly sounded. In the blink of an eye, 3 cars with the typical black and white livery of the sheriff's department were speeding towards the scene. Sizzle. 3 cars roared over, and then quickly decomposed and reorganized. In just 2 or 3 breaths, they all turned into 3 robots about 3 meters high. This scene is quite similar to the movie, Transformers, from the previous life on Earth. Li Qian knew that they were mechanical beasts just like the high-speed rail robots he had seen before. Unable to hold back his curiosity, he subconsciously used the eye of true sight to investigate. The next moment, the information about the nearest robot was presented in front of him. Name: Car Robot. Attribute: Mechanical. Level: Elite 9th level. Potential: Command the 3rd level. Skills: Cyclonus Perfect Mechanical Transformation Perfect Mechanical Repair Perfect Mechanical Improvement Proficient Crazy Shooting Perfect Heavy Machine Gun Perfect Flamethrower Proficient Laser Cannon Proficient Laser Cannon Skilled Tracking Missile Skilled Electromagnetic Gun Beginner. After seeing the densely packed skills in the car robot's information, Li Qian was a little confused. It is worthy of being a pet beast created entirely by human wisdom. This skill configuration can be said to be fully loaded. With this kind of skill configuration, even if the level is only Elite 9, it is estimated that he can leapfrog the level and fight to become a leader. No wonder there is a vague saying in the entire ancestral star beast controlling world that the mechanical system is invincible. To say that he is invincible may be a bit exaggerated, but to say that his combat power is outstanding in the same realm is definitely something he can afford. The mechanical department is so good, why doesn't Lu Changfeng have a contract? It's not like he made an unconditional contract. The car robot in front of me should be the standard mechanical pet beast of the Public Security Bureau. Li Qian was still a little confused about this. Find an opportunity to ask. Just when Li Qian was using the eye of true sight to check the information about the car robot in front of him, a familiar voice came from the side. How is it? How is my Quanglong number? 3. Only then did Li Qian notice that there was another person standing next to the car robot in front of him, and it was not Zhou Weiping who he had met once before. It seems that the car robot in front of him should be one of his pet animals. Very good. Hearing this, Li Qian admired sincerely, the envy in his eyes not concealed at all. And now, he also understood why his true eye could detect information about the car robot in front of him. It was Zhou Weiping who probably gave the order, and the car robot in front of him didn't defend himself. Otherwise, with his level of strength, he would not be able to detect any information at all. At the same time, while Li Qian and Zhou Weiping were talking, 2 other security officers from the Public Security Bureau had already handcuffed the cultist of the Black God sect with special handcuffs. Zhou Weiping stopped chatting with Li Qian. At this moment, it was not suitable for chatting. There was still business to do. He raised his eyebrows and looked at the cultist who had been knocked down by Gao Yaxin's Phantom Foxes, Phantom Wave, and looked up and down. It is indeed a cultist of the Black God sect, classmate Li Qian. This time, you are made a great contribution. Li Qian shook his head, stretched out his hand and pointed at Gao Yaxin who was not far away. No, I don't dare to take credit. The person who subdued this cultist was not me, but Sister Gao. Zhou Weiping looked in the direction of Li Qian's finger and saw Gao Yaxin. He felt a little familiar, so he asked tentatively, are you from the Gao family in the provincial capital? No. Gao Yaxin heard this and shook her head decisively. Seeing on the other side, Lu Chengfeng's battle was basically over. She did not hesitate and prepared to leave. Little brother, my research is almost over. Soon I will leave Lingshui City. If you have time, come to the training base. I have some training experience and have compiled it into a book. It may be useful to you. Quote. Well, I will definitely go there. Li Qian nodded and agreed without hesitation. From Zhou Weiping's words just now, Li Qian could probably tell that Gao Yaxin's identity was unusual and her background was certainly not simple. However, Gao Yaxin chose to interrupt, which meant that she did not want others to know her true identity. In this case, Li Qian would not delve into it. After all, everyone has their own secrets. If you rush to explore, you may cause unnecessary misunderstandings, resentment, or even hostility. After a brief explanation, Gao Yaxin did not stay any longer. She took the Phantom Fox and walked away from the reservoir. Not long after Gao Yaxin left, Lu Chengfeng, who had finished the battle, rushed over. He looked at the former's leaving figure and wanted to catch up and say thank you, but suddenly stopped. It seems a bit too deliberate to catch up now, and the other party left at this time, obviously not wanting to involve too much. In the end, Lu Chengfeng did not catch up, but turned his attention to Li Qian. Who is that beauty? Her name is Gao Yaxin. She is a breeder and one of my seniors. Li Qian didn't know how to define the relationship between himself and Gao Yaxin. After thinking about it, he felt that the word senior was still inappropriate. It's appropriate. I have to thank her for what happened just now. Without her timely appearance, the battle would not have ended so quickly. Lu Chengfeng said with some regret. I don't think she cares about thanking you very much. Li Qian looked at Lu Chengfeng and smiled, but I will bring your thanks. Then I'll trouble you. During the conversation between the two, Zhou Weiping, who had already recognized Lu Chengfeng's identity, suddenly interrupted. Lu Captain, how come you have time to come to our Lingshui city to hunt down this cultist? Zhou Weiping and Lu Chengfeng were both members of the Public Security Bureau. Although they were separated by a city, Lingshui City and Yunlin City were neighboring cities after all. It was normal for the two to know each other, and Li Qian did not find it strange. Hearing this, Lu Chengfeng glanced at Li Qian and saw that the latter had an indifferent attitude, so he said truthfully, I came to Lingshui City today specifically to find classmate Li Qian, a cultist from the Black God sect. We just happened to meet him. So that's it. Zhou Weiping looked surprised, and then joked, then this guy is really unlucky. As for the reason why Lu Chengfeng came to Li Qian, he didn't ask. The two of them just knew each other. They were barely half colleagues in the same system. Whether it was business or private matters, it was not good to ask too deeply. Not long after, Zhou Weiping left with the cultist from the Black God sect. After watching the three robots turn back into cars and roar away, Li Qian just turned his attention to Lu Chengfeng. Without hesitation, he immediately asked, Captain Lu, this should be the standard robot of your public security bureau, right? Why don't you have a contract? Isn't it said that the mechanical system is invincible at the same level? Hearing this, Lu Chengfeng showed a slight smile on his face and replied, the mechanical system is invincible at the same level. This statement is just a rumor on the internet. In fact, it is far from that exaggeration. After a pause, he continued, of course, the mechanical department does have outstanding combat power among the same level. I don't deny this. Changing the topic, he continued, it's just that the mechanical department also has problems with the mechanical department. The advantages of the mechanical department are very obvious, the recruitment is transparent, the combat power is strong, and there is no need to worry about the cost of feeding. Looking at the direction of the three public security bureau cars leaving, he said unhurriedly, but the mechanical department also has two very serious flaws. Actually, it cannot be regarded as a flaw. After all, there is no perfect pet beast in this world. Next, the 2 points I want to mention are not so much the flaws of the mechanical system as they are the characteristics of the mechanical system. The first thing is the potential of the mechanical department. Theoretically, the mechanical system has infinite potential and can be updated and upgraded without limit, but this is only theoretical. In fact, the update and upgrade of the mechanical system almost completely relies on mechanical modules, not to mention the core energy module or chip module. Just a basic flight module or weapon module, the cost of upgrading it will be prohibitive. Quote, furthermore, the major federal high-tech companies in the ancestral star will launch the next generation of mechanical modules from time to time. When new mechanical modules are launched, do you want to follow up? If you follow up, your wallet will not be able to bear it. If you don't, your combat effectiveness will fall behind. 2 people. So in addition to the saying that the mechanical system has superior combat power at the same level, there is another saying, the system exclusive to rich people. After hearing Lu Chengfeng's explanation, Li Qian had a look of surprise on his face, and then he had some doubts. What about the Mad Dragon number 3 just now? Although the 3-car robots just now have strong combat capabilities, in fact, according to the existing mechanical modules, they have little potential left. In this regard, Lu Chengfeng's statement is consistent with what Li Qian saw. Judging from the information he detected using the Eye of True Sight, Zhou Weiping's Mad Dragon number 3 has low potential, and can only reach the 3rd level of leadership. At first, Li Qian was a little confused. With so many skills mastered, Quanglong number 3's potential is definitely more than just commanding the 3rd level. Now after listening to Lu Chengfeng's explanation, he understood. Unfortunately, its existing mechanical modules can only support it to reach the 3rd level of leadership. In addition, because the mechanical department is different from other departments, it can communicate through AI glasses or other electronic devices with similar functions, and there is no language barrier. It can also be transformed into various means of transportation, such as cars, aircraft and so on, so most mechanical systems can still exert most of their combat effectiveness even without contracts. Of course, compared with a direct contract, the combat effectiveness will definitely be compromised. So even though I don't have a contract with the mechanical system, when performing tasks, I can apply for the support of the mechanical beast from the headquarters or use it to fight. Compared with a direct contract, there is a gap, but it's not big. The Quanglong number 3 you just saw is also in the same situation. That Zhou Weiping actually doesn't have a contract with Mad Dragon number 3. When Li Qian heard this, he couldn't help but nodded slightly. He had a general understanding of the mechanical system. After Li Qian took a moment to digest the information just now, Lu Chengfeng extended his second finger again, and then said, the second step is the second flaw. If you want to unleash 100% of the potential of the mechanical system, the requirements for a beast master are not low. Otherwise, a mechanical beast master would not be called a mechanic alone. When Li Qian heard this, he couldn't help but look curious. What are your specific requirements? If you want to become a powerful mechanic, you must have extremely strong professional capabilities in both software and hardware. Lu Chengfeng continued to explain to Li Qian, this is why almost all mechanics are beast masters with high IQ and high education. Understood. It seems that the path of becoming a mechanic is not accessible to everyone. Of course, you can make a contract casually, except for those who don't expect much success. It's just that this kind of beast master should not be called a mechanic. After thinking for a while, Li Qian understood the key point. Mechanical beasts are products of high technology. If you want to understand the mechanical beasts, you have to be proficient in both software and hardware. You must at least be a high-tech talent. Originally, Li Qian was planning to contract a mechanical pet beast in the future. After listening to Lu Chengfeng's explanation, I immediately felt that I had to think about this matter again. However, being non-contracted like Quanglong number 3 seems to be a good choice. Shaking his head and not thinking about it, Li Qian got the chat back on track. Lu Chengfeng explained such a big doubt to himself, so he had to give him some reassurance. Thank you, Captain Lu, for clearing up a doubt in my mind. By the way, don't worry about the blue-scaled dragon. I will be serious and responsible. After a pause and some thought, he gave a time point. I will try to complete the evolution before July 1st. It's nothing. You will understand these things soon after you go to the Beast Control University. Lu Chengfeng chuckled. As for the matter of the blue-scaled dragon, since I have left it to you, I must trust you 100%. Relieved. The two chatted for a while, and then Lu Chengfeng left. In this regard, Li Qian did not hold back. After all, Lu Chengfeng is the captain of the Special Operations Team of a municipal public security bureau. He must be very busy at work on weekdays, so he doesn't have much time to waste here. After Lu Chengfeng left, Li Qian immediately called up the task panel and checked it. Scientific Research Task. The Second Evolution Way of Koi. The current task progress is 87%. The progress has increased by 2 points. Li Qian murmured to himself, and then began to recall that these 2 points of progress seemed to have increased when he first saw the violent salamander. At that time, the matter was urgent and he didn't check it at all. Looking back now, there must be some connection. Saw a violent salamander. Mission progress has been increased. Could it be that the second evolutionary form of Koi is the violent salamander? It is said that the potential of the violent salamander has only reached the first level of Overlord. If so, is there any value in continuing to study it? Shaking his head, Li Qian quickly denied this idea. He prefers the second evolutionary form of Koi to be a salamander-like beast, rather than a violent salamander. Otherwise, the task progress should not only increase by 2%. An increase of only 2 points only proves that there is probably a correlation between the two, rather than a direct equal sign. Looking at the progress value in the mission panel, after one battle, it inexplicably increased by 2 points, which made Li Qian quite happy. And, salamander-like pets, it can be regarded as giving him a relatively clear direction. Coupled with one of the previously determined conditions for evolution, Blood Orchid Potion. Based on the above factors, the second evolutionary form of Koi has a relatively clear picture. In all likelihood, it is a Western salamander-like beast. In addition, there is another point that is very important. The second evolutionary form of Koi requires the use of formations. In nature, there are almost no natural formations, and even if they exist, they are extremely rare. Such harsh evolution conditions are no less difficult than those of the blue-scale Jiao, or even more difficult. It can be inferred from this that the number of this kind of Western salamander-like pet beast must be extremely rare, and the corresponding degenerate form must not have been found yet. Otherwise, this pet beast would have been discussed and studied together with the blue-scaled dragon. With these elements, Li Qian was confident that he would be able to find this pet beast before graduation. In fact, this is equivalent to searching according to the picture, and there is no difficulty. After thinking about these things, he took a long breath and felt much more relaxed. Then he returned home without delay or wasting time. As for the chaotic and messy battle scene, he didn't have to worry about it at all. People from the Public Security Bureau would clean it up. And because the reservoir dam has not suffered much damage, at most there are some minor damages, there should be no problems with repairs, so Li Qian is not too worried about the impact on Lingshui City. After returning home, after having lunch, Li Qian went out again. He wasted no time, got on his bicycle and headed straight to the sun-breeding base. After a short period of time, Li Qian's feelings were completely different when he entered the Zhaoyang training base again. Before, it was envy. This is someone else's training base. Now, it's emotion. This is your own breeding base. Not long after entering the breeding base, Li Qian saw that a rockery had begun to be built at the central pond of the breeding base. I have to say, Anne's movements are really fast. Moreover, this kind of speed is very suitable for him. After saying hello to a staff member he knew at the base, Li Qian went straight to Building 1. At this moment, Gao Yaxin is in Building 1. Not long after, he came to Building No. 1. Different from the small white building where Gao Yaxin was consulted before, this building number 1 is obviously taller and more imposing. The building has 5 floors and an estimated area of 1,000 square meters. It is more like a teaching building than a research institute. Just as Li Qian entered Building 1, his cell phone rang suddenly. He took out his cell phone and saw that it was the text message sent by Gao Yaxin. Following the prompts from the text message on his mobile phone, he climbed directly to the roof of the 5th floor. On the rooftop of the 5th floor, without any surprise, he saw an exquisite figure. It's Gao Yaxin, Sister Gao. Li Qian looked at Gao Yaxin, who was leaning on the railing and looking into the distance, and said hello. Gao Yaxin did not answer, but patted the railing beside her. Li Qian understood and walked over. Like Gao Yaxin, he leaned on the railing from a high position and scanned the entire training base. Gao Yaxin did not turn her head to look, but spoke in a calm voice, as if talking to Li Qian or talking to herself. The previous owner of this breeding base was a relatively well-known senior. The trainer is also one of my more respected seniors. Back then, during the base's heyday, it was said that the area covered was more than twice what it is now, and there were almost 1,000 pet beasts inside. There was an endless stream of beast masters who came to buy pet beasts, or to cultivate pet beasts. Quote, Gao Yaxin talked about some past events of Zhaoyang training base. Li Qian also knows these past events. His mother Han Yuying once told him about it. At that time, Li Qian only listened to it as a story. Well, it seems that he still listens to it as a story now. After all, the history of this breeding base has nothing to do with him, but the future is destined to bloom in his hands. It's a pity that after the old man left, his descendants did not have this ambition and did not have the talent in this area. As time went by, this training base slowly declined, and eventually, it was reduced to this. I'm temporarily staying here to do research, and I might want to help, but after all, I can't stay here for a long time. Just 2 days ago, the old man's descendants had reached an agreement with a local businessman to officially sell this breeding base. The people who are building the rockery over there are the people of the new owner. It's ironic to say that the new owner has already started to renovate it before we leave. That's fine. Instead of continuing to hang on like this half-dead, it's better to let go. Maybe this breeding base can usher in a new life. Quote. Gao Yaxin gave Li Qian the impression that she was a more capable and decisive person, but today, she rambled on for a long time, which made Li Qian couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth slightly. This new owner is not talking about me. Seeing that Li Qian seemed to be moved, Gao Yaxin continued to speak, and said with some embarrassment, I'm sorry for letting you listen to nonsense for so long. I'm leaving Lingshui City and this breeding base soon. I'm a little sentimental. Unknowingly, I said so much that it made you laugh. Li Qian coughed lightly and waved his hand. Well, it's nothing. If Sister Gao is free in the future, she can come to Lingshui City again and revisit her hometown of this training base. Even if I go back to my old place, I'm afraid things have changed. Gao Yaxin shook her head and said with some disappointment, and since it has been sold, it is someone else's base. If I go back to my old place, it will inevitably lead to embarrassment. Quote, well, Sister Gao, Li Qian didn't think much and was about to reveal the truth. As soon as he spoke, he was interrupted by Gao Yaxin. Don't call me Sister Gao, it seems awkward. Seeing this, Li Qian chose to follow the good example and said, Sister Yaxin. Well, Sister Yaxin, the local businessman who bought this breeding base should be an Haonian of the Yan family. Li Qian pressed his forehead and tried his best to squeeze out a smile. The reason why they bought this breeding base was actually to give it to me. After saying that, he looked at Gao Yaxin cautiously. Then he saw a look of surprise suddenly appear on the other party's beautiful face. At this moment, Li Qian could clearly feel that the atmosphere at the scene was slightly awkward. PFF'd. In the end, Gao Yaxin couldn't hold it back and laughed directly. Little brother, you really surprised me. She couldn't help laughing and said, if I had known that it was you who bought this breeding base, why would I be sad? It shouldn't be difficult to come back and have a look. You're welcome at any time. Li Qian nodded without hesitation. After suppressing her smile, Gao Yaxin shook her head. It was such a big mistake. She smiled self-deprecatingly, and then continued her arrangements. Also, since you have taken over this breeding base, I will not take away some of my breeding materials. I will leave them all to you. Hope it helps you. Thank you, Sister Yaxin. Li Qian heard this and quickly thanked her. Last time, the information she gave me helped me a lot. You should also gain something from the information this time. Li Qian is looking forward to this. You already called me sister, so there's no need to thank you for this. Gao Yaxin waved her hand and looked at Li Qian, who still had a childish look on her face, feeling quite emotional. Unexpectedly, I came to the remote Lingshui city to do research on a topic I randomly found, and I was so lucky to meet such a nurturing genius. With your achievements, as long as the admissions office of Zhongnan Yusho University doesn't mess around, getting into it is a sure thing. Gao Yaxin thought for a while and then made a suggestion. When you get to Nandu City, remember to call me. A few graduates of Zhongnan Beast Control University and I jointly established a training base in Nandu City. The scale is no smaller than this training base. When the time comes, if you like me, little brother, you can name yourself as a trainer in our training base. Having said this, Gao Yaxin winked in a rare mischievous manner. By the way, becoming a breeder at our breeding base will bring you a pretty good salary. In addition, our breeding base has an advantage that other breeding bases cannot match. Several of my partners are all first-rate beauties. Li Qian was stunned for a moment after hearing this, and then he made a joke, a beauty like Sister Yaxin. Ah, this time, the stunned person turned into Gao Yaxin. After she came to her senses, she giggled, they are much prettier than me. Gao Yaxin and Li Qian were chatting on the rooftop of the 5th floor of Building 1 of the training base. Gao Yaxin couldn't help but sigh. I feel relieved knowing that the breeding base finally fell into your hands. It's a peace of mind. Sister Yaxin, don't worry, I won't disgrace this training base. Sooner or later, I will bring it back to its former glory. Li Qian responded. Li Qian said this not to comfort Gao Yaxin on purpose, but because he was indeed confident that the cultivation base would change the status quo and prosper. After chatting for a while, Li Qian thought of something and took off his backpack. He took out a black bead from his backpack and placed it in front of Gao Yaxin. Li Qian said solemnly, here you go, this should be what the cultists of the Black God sect are looking for. That's right, what Li Qian took out at this moment was the strange black beads he got from birdtail fish. He also studied this black bead for a while. I also checked on the internet. But nothing was gained, only some specious information. So far, Li Qian still doesn't know what it is. Give me. Gao Ya was pleased to see this, pointed to her nose, and then asked confirmingly, do you know what this is? Li Qian shook his head. I don't know, but it can be seen from the fact that the cultists of the Black God sect put so much effort into it, even going to the Public Security Bureau directly, to try every means to find it. This thing, it must be very precious to them. This thing is indeed very precious, especially to the cultists of the Black God sect. Actually, not only the cultists of the Black God religion, but also the cultists of other dark organizations also crave this kind of thing. Gao Yaxin nodded and agreed with Li Qian's point of view. She looked at the latter and asked in a playful voice, since it is a rare thing and priceless, why do you still take it out? Li Qian heard this, smiled bitterly, and then said truthfully, although I am only a high school student now, I have already determined to become a trainer. Rare treasures have extraordinary appeal to a breeder. So, it must be a lie to say that you don't want to take this bead as your own. However, I know better that a common man is guilty of carrying a jade when he is not guilty. After this bead fell into my hands, within a few days, it attracted enemies like the cultists of the Black God sect. In the future, I may encounter even greater dangers. So, I am self-aware. Right now, I don't have the strength to take over this bead. Rather than risking your life to keep it private, it's better to let it out. Hearing this, Gao Yaxin cast an approving look at Li Qian. At the age of 18, it is rare to have such a character and know how to choose. I am looking forward to your future even more. But aren't you worried that if the trouble is diverted to the east and I take over this hot potato, the cultists of the Black God sect will come looking for me? Li Qian smiled with a very relaxed expression, because I believe in Sister Yaxin, and Sister Yaxin is a smart person. If Sister Yaxin dares to take this bead, it will at least prove that Sister Yaxin has the confidence and strength to keep it. If Sister Yaxin doesn't dare to pick it up, I'll turn around and hand it over to the Public Security Bureau. After this attack, Li Qian understood. When strength does not allow it. This bead, for me, is a disaster rather than a blessing. You really are. After hearing Li Qian's words, Gao Yaxin didn't know what to say for a moment. The maturity of the other party's mind made her feel a bit incredible, and he didn't look like a high school student at all. More like a middle-aged man with rich life experience. However, when I recalled the slightly embarrassed reaction of the other party when I mentioned the beautiful woman as my partner, it matched that of a high school student. To be honest, this bead is actually not worth much to me. However, my teacher seems to be doing research in this area, maybe he will be interested. If he is interested, I will accept this bead for the teacher. As for the price, you will definitely be satisfied. After that, she took out her cell phone without fussing, and then dialed a number in front of Li Qian. It should have been called to her teacher. A few minutes later, she hung up the phone, turned around and looked at Li Qian. With a smile on her lips, she said lightly, "You are lucky. My teacher at Beast Control University, Mr. Zhang, has indeed been doing research in this area recently. This magic core is something he urgently needs." As she spoke, she stretched out her hand, and a blue crystal about the size of a fingernail suddenly appeared in her palm. In this way, I accepted this magic core for my teacher. I can't easily measure its value, but in exchange for this space crystal, you shouldn't suffer a loss. Space crystal. Li Qian was shocked when he heard Gao Yaxin say these 4 words. Through surfing the internet from time to time during this period, and occasionally chatting with those weird friends in the Abandoned Pet Research Institute group, Li Qian had already heard about space crystals. I also know what this space crystal is and what it does. To put it bluntly, this space crystal is actually a piece of space equipment. It's similar to the storage rings and universe bags in previous online novels. It is said that only certain space pet beasts can be produced with specific beast control talents. Very precious. To be honest, Li Qian was really moved when Gao Yaxin took out the space crystal. However, he did not take it immediately. Seeing this, Gao Ya smiled and roughly guessed what Li Qian was thinking. She explained, "To my teacher, the value of this magic core is definitely not lower than this space crystal. The magic core is useless to you. The space crystal is with my teacher. That's it." Such an exchange can be regarded as each getting what he needs. After hearing Gao Yaxin's explanation, Li Qian was no longer reserved. Moreover, there is nothing to be reserved about equal exchange. He directly took the space crystal from Gao Yaxin's hand. The spiritual power penetrates into the space crystal. Soon, a space with a length, width and height of about 2 meters suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. As his thoughts moved, his mobile phone appeared in the space in front of him. As soon as I thought again, the phone reappeared. Li Qian knew very well that this space was not actually in front of him. It's just that his mental power penetrated it, giving him the illusion of before his eyes. If you want it to be more convenient to use, I suggest you make this space crystal into a necklace or bracelet. Gao Yaxin looked at Li Qian with a smile. Li Qian nodded and decided to go to the jewelry store tomorrow to choose a men's necklace and then set the space crystal on it. With this space crystal, you no longer need to carry large and small bags when you go out. Some precious things can also be stored with you. By the way, Sister Yaxin, what is a magic core? After putting away the space crystal, Li Qian immediately brought the topic to the black bead. He was very curious about this. Not only the cultists of the Black God sect are bound to get it, but also Gao Yaxin's teacher is also interested in what it is. Seeing Li Qian change the topic, Gao Yaxin suddenly fell into silence. She was organizing her words, and after a moment, she spoke. Do you know the origin of pet beasts, or, to be more precise, extraordinary creatures? Li Qian was confused. It's unclear why Gao Yaxin asked such a question. It's not that this question is difficult. Rather, it's too simple. In the year 5428 of the ancestral star calendar, a dimensional rift appeared, and countless extraordinary creatures emerged from it. The reason why these creatures are called supernatural is because they possess all kinds of incredible superpowers. Extraordinary creatures have brought subversive destruction to the human order. The ancestral planet human race is facing an unprecedented crisis. Although human thermal weapons are lethal to extraordinary creatures, there are simply too many extraordinary creatures to deal with. What's even more frightening is that as the dimensional rift opens and extraordinary energy pours in, the creatures on the ancestral star also begin to mutate and evolve towards extraordinary creatures. This is also the origin of the ancestral star pet beast. The situation is critical. At critical moments, some anthropologists propose that only by mastering extraordinary power can the crisis be solved. So at that time, all the countries in the ancestral star joined forces to form a death squad of 100,000 people. The suicide squad invaded the dimensional rift with thermal weapons clearing the way. After 3 years of arduous fighting, finally, in the year 5431 of the ancestral star calendar, the death squads found information about beast control in a certain civilization site in the dimensional rift. In the year 5432 of the ancestral star calendar, the death squads withdrew from the dimensional rift, leaving only 300 people. In the same year, beast controlling contracts and meditation methods became popular, and mankind officially entered the era of beast controlling civilization. In another 10 years, on the ancestral star, the 8 great genius beast masters rose up. They all possess extraordinary beast control talents, and in a short period of time, they have grown to the level of kings. Under the leadership of the 8 kings, more than 200 countries in human society quickly united and integrated. Eventually, the 8 federations of Dongxia, Kamikaze, Tianxing, Ziling, Ogama, Vols, Shengting, and Yongye were formed. The establishment of the 8 major federations marks that mankind has entered a new chapter. This year is also the first year of the federal calendar. In the year 1135 of the Federation calendar, the mechanical system was created, and humans had large mechanical battleship-level pets. In the same year, mankind stepped out of the Hongyao galaxy and entered the age of cosmic civilization. In the year 1156 of the Federation calendar, human mechanics once again discovered extraordinary creatures in the Sirius galaxy in the constellation Shenzhen. This knowledge was taught to them by the teacher when they first took the pet knowledge class when they were in their first year of high school. It is also recorded in most of the historical books on beast control. Therefore, at this moment, although he didn't understand why Gao Yaxin raised such a question, Li Qian still explained it concisely. Finally, he concluded his speech by saying, So far, in the general understanding of human society, there are only 2 sources of pet beasts, one is the dimensional rift, and the other is the outer battlefield. Even the native pet beasts of the ancestral star were born due to the leakage of extraordinary energy in the dimensional cracks. The source can also be traced back to the dimensional rift. As for the outer battlefield, it refers to other galaxies in the cosmic civilization. Well said. Gao Yaxin nodded approvingly. This at least proves that Li Qian's basic knowledge is very solid. Pet beasts originate from extraordinary creatures. In a sense, pet beasts are equal to extraordinary creatures, but... After a pause, Gao Yaxin continued, extraordinary creatures are not equal to pet beasts. Although this is a bit convoluted, the meaning is very simple. Some extraordinary creatures cannot be contracted by humans and become pet beasts. In other words, after contracting, the side effects will be huge. Warcraft are such extraordinary creatures. And the magic core comes from the magic beast. Hearing this, Li Qian had a look of surprise on his face, and then he became more puzzled. Why can't Warcraft be contracted? The dimensional rift is not a complete plane. Gao Yaxin continued to explain Li Qian's confusion. It is more like a multi-dimensional space nested layer by layer, like an onion. Warcraft lives in relatively deep dimensional cracks, where the energy is violent and dirty. Living in deep dimensional cracks for a long time, the souls of extraordinary creatures will be contaminated. As we all know, the essence of a beast control contract is a soul contract. The soul of a monster is polluted. If the contract is made, the human soul will be polluted as well, turning into a demon that has no sense and only knows how to kill. Hearing this, Li Qian was suddenly startled in his heart. This magic core comes from the Black God cult, doesn't it mean? That's right. Gao Yaxin nodded solemnly and told Li Qian his suspicion. Those dark organizations are trying to get their hands on the power of Warcraft. Then your teacher. Li Qian made up his mind to speak, but when he was halfway through his words, he realized something was wrong and stopped immediately. Gao Yaxin smiled lightly and did not care about Li Qian's unintentional offense. My teacher is naturally different from these dark organizations. He is doing normal research and has no intention of getting involved. Actually, our officials in the Eastern Xia Federation are also doing this kind of research. If you want to understand the world more clearly and thoroughly, you must enter deeper dimensional cracks. And if you want to enter deeper dimensional rifts, Warcraft is the hurdle that you can't get around. Li Qian understood and then fell into silence. Today, this exchange with Gao Yaxin had a great impact on him. It changed his worldview quite a bit. After a moment of silence, he took a long breath and smiled lightly. Whether it is a dimensional rift or an outer battlefield, he will be exposed to it when he becomes stronger in the future. So there is no need to rush. Developing slowly and becoming stronger steadily is the way to go. After thinking about this, he shook his head and threw away all those useless and complicated thoughts. Focusing on the present is the most important thing. He handed the magic core to Gao Yaxin and listened to the latter's introduction of information related to the magic core. Next, the two chatted for a while, and then left the rooftop of Building 1. Although Gao Yaxin has not been at the Zhaoyang training base for a long time, she is still more familiar with Li Qian. So, that afternoon, she took Li Qian for a walk around the base. He introduced the various facilities inside. It has to be said that a skinny camel is bigger than a horse. Although the Zhaoyang training base has been defeated, the foundation is still there. In the base, in addition to the pet houses, there are a total of 12 research buildings and staff dormitories. At its peak, it was estimated that there were hundreds of employees. The only pity is that many research buildings are no longer in use. Although there are still people cleaning them and not being abandoned, they are only maintaining hygiene. Overall, Li Qian is quite satisfied with this training base. Although it seems a bit deserted because of the relatively small number of people, the overall structure is still there. As long as funds and personnel are injected, it will soon be revitalized and lively again. Of course, it is still impossible to return to its previous heyday. Take it easy. Li Qian is not short of time. The next day, Li Qian came to the Zhaoyang training base again, but Gao Yaxin had already left. Along with her departure, news spread. The magic core of the Black God sect fell into her hands. Li Qian learned the news from Zhou Weiping, and felt a slight wave of emotion in his heart. He knew very well why Gao Yaxin did this. It's just to protect yourself. If this news is leaked, the attention of the Black God cult will definitely be taken away by her. This way you will be safe. On Monday, Han Yuying went to work as normal. As soon as she arrived at the training base, she was informed by a colleague at the base that she should go to the lobby of Building 1 for a meeting in half an hour. The breeding base has changed its boss, and she already knows about this. This morning, when she patrolled the base and found no Gao Yaxin, she realized that the base had changed. Due to the decline of the Zhaoyang training base, there are not many employees at the moment. Even if Zhang Dequan, who guards the gate, is included, there are only 18 people. It was these 18 people who gave Han Yuying a feeling of panic this morning. She can understand this too. After all, with a new boss, no one knows whether they can continue to work here. What if I get laid off? It's hard to find a job these days, and it's inevitable to worry. Just as everyone was standing in the lobby of Building 1, with different thoughts, and some people could not help but start whispering to each other, a slightly bloated figure walked out from a corner in the hall. This slightly bloated figure is none other than An Haonian. Li Qian mentioned cooperation with the An family to his mother Han Yuying, but neither she nor her father Li Chungyang had ever met any other An family except Fatian. This resulted in that even if An Haonian was standing in front of her, she did not recognize him. Otherwise, she would definitely be able to relate to a lot of things. An Haonian walked up to the 18 people in such a leisurely manner. Facing everyone, he smiled and said, "I believe you should have guessed some things and changes. That's right, our training base has changed its boss. From today on, I, An Haonian, will be the new manager of our Sun training base. Now, I would like to invite the new boss to give a speech to everyone." An Haonian's voice fell, and then he turned his head and looked in a certain direction. That direction was exactly the corner he had just come out of. After everyone heard this, they all looked at that position with curiosity. Except Han Yuying. At this moment, her head was buzzing. Does this An Haonian sound familiar? I remember that the person my son told me to cooperate with, and was a man named An Haonian. Confused, she subconsciously followed the crowd and looked over. The next moment, a very familiar figure came out of the corner and caught her eye. Old Li. Seeing this extremely familiar figure, she almost subconsciously shouted out in a low voice. Yes, the new boss who suddenly appeared was none other than Li Qian's father, the head of the Li family, Li Chungyang. Han Yuying's gaffeful reaction instantly attracted everyone's attention, but she seemed not to notice. Thinking of the cooperation with the An family that his son had mentioned to him before, and combining it with the current scene, everything suddenly became clear. After knowing the truth of the matter, Han Yuying instantly became angry. I dare you, father and son, to work together to fool me. See if I don't fix you. Thinking of this, she glared at Li Chungyang. I was going to let him know why the flowers were so red after he finished showing off. At this moment, just give him some dignity. After spending a few minutes and talking about some prepared content, after a while, Li Chungyang dismissed everyone. Let them do what they have to do. But some people stayed. A moment later, bursts of miserable howls suddenly came from an office in Building 1. An Haonian stood outside the office, listening to what was going on inside, and couldn't help but cover his face with his hands. In a flash, another week has passed. During this week, Li Qian once again transformed into a good student and a good son. Go to and from school on time, attend class seriously, and arrive at the training base on time. Because it only took 3 days, An Haonian arranged for people to build a rockery at the central pool of the Sun training base. After the introduction of recycled water, an artificial waterfall was built, so Li Qian never went to the Shijiao hydropower station again. There is another reason why I didn't go to the hydropower station. What happened last time left a bit of a psychological shadow on him. Now, he doesn't have Captain Liu by his side. If he encounters the cultists of the Black God sect again, the consequences will be disastrous. Apart from these things, the biggest change should be the training base itself. Ever since I bought the breeding base and became the owner of it, maybe after half my life, I finally have my own property. Both parents are particularly concerned about it. Now, they spend almost all of their time in the breeding base 24 hours a day, treating the breeding base directly as their home. This meant that Li Qian had to go to the training base after school, otherwise, he wouldn't even have a place to eat. His parents are full of enthusiasm and motivation. They are no longer busy working for a living as before, with no light in their eyes. Li Qian is naturally happy to see this happen. And because Gao Yaxin and the previous generation of old breeders at the breeding base left a lot of breeding information, he is happy to spend time in the base every day these days. Chewing on these breeding materials, although it did not add any inspiration value to the scientific research task, the second evolution method of Koi, the feeling of slowly enriching himself and slowly improving his knowledge still made him feel happy physically and mentally. Son, we can't continue like this. In the past, there were a few intern trainers, and the training base made some progress. Now, it's just going out but not getting in. Sigh. In the training base, Han Yuying looked at the base's expenditure bills and couldn't help but sigh. The base was purchased, but she was troubled by how to operate it and how to ensure profitability. If the current situation cannot be reversed as soon as possible, this sun cultivation base will become a huge burden. Hearing this, Li Qian smiled nonchalantly and said, "Mom, don't worry, our training base will follow an elite route in the future. That is, it will not open for 3 years, but it will last for 3 years after opening." He waved his hand and continued to say casually, "So there is no business for a while, so there is no need to worry at all. By the way, how many koi are there in the central pool now?" He picked up a book and asked while reading. "Including the one you brought back, the one Xiaoji brought 3 days ago, and Ah Fu, there are 36 in total." Han Yuying replied. Having worked in the breeding base for more than 10 years, she is very familiar with the pet beasts owned by the base. Of course, it is also related to the fact that there are not many pet beasts in the base now. 6 or 6 straight, the numbers are quite auspicious. Li Qian agreed casually, and then asked, "How is the training going?" Han Yuying reported truthfully. Under Ah Fu's leadership, Wu Tiao has been training waterfall climbing skills, but the others have not changed much. Although she is Li Qian's mother, she knows very well that whether the base can continue to operate depends on her son. Therefore, she did not dare to neglect what Li Qian explained. In the past few days, she had almost been supervising the training of the koi. Unfortunately, apart from Ah Fu, Tan Tu brought by Lu Changfeng, and Aaron brought by Fatian, only 3 of the original 33 in the base are following the training. This made her quite helpless. Some of the koi couldn't even understand her commands. They were no different from ordinary fish, and even if they wanted to train, they couldn't get started. Li Qian was not surprised by this. In fact, 3 koi stood out and met his expectations. After all, the blue-scaled dragon is a rare pet beast with overlord-level potential. Even if he has figured out the evolutionary route, he still needs extremely high potential if he wants to successfully evolve. This was something he had expected. These 5, plus Ah Fu, need special attention. Leave the others alone and keep them as ornamental fish. He nodded, made arrangements, and then continued to ask, "Where is the sparrow fish?" "I kept it in a small pond next to the central pond with 3 blue pine fish and 2 golden turtles." Han Yuying looked in a certain direction and replied. Li Qian thought for a moment, got up from the sofa, and walked straight outside. "I'll go take a look at it." It's a small pond, but it's not small at all. The area is estimated to be about 3 acres. It's small only compared to the large pond next to it, which covers an area of about 10 acres. Li Qian came to the center of the base, where a figure was already standing by the pond. Walking over and patting Fatian on the shoulder, Li Qian smiled and said, "Come to see your Tantu again. Qianzi, you should at least pay attention. I'm about to graduate. If I graduate and haven't contracted a pet, I'm probably going to be laughed to death by Sun Shuhei." Fatian was a little resentful. "Fatty, it's not that I don't want to help you, but the progress is already full. Even if I can go without food and sleep, your Tantu can't stand it. Besides, Sun Shuhei is just a clown. Why do you care about him?" Li Qian spread his hands. "If you really can't wait, you can contract the Black Flame Swordsman first, and then contract the Tantu when you reach the elite level." He gave Fatian an idea. Fatian immediately shook his head like a rattle. "No, how long do we have to wait?" Li Qian was at a loss for words. "I don't know whether to praise you for your self-knowledge or scold you for being useless. By the way, there will be a class reunion next week. Will you attend?" Fatian suddenly mentioned something. "Where are we going to the reunion?" Li Qian asked. "It seems to be Taoyuan Villa in the north," Fatian said. "Oh, going to Taoyuan Villa, that's not cheap. Who organized it?" Li Qian asked curiously. "It was organized by the squad leader Tu Zhaozhao, but it seems that Sun Shuhei and Lu Kuiwan paid for it," Fatian said uncertainly. "Go, why not? I like to do things that are free," Li Qian said firmly. "I knew you would go." Fatian laughed. "They are so attentive to Lick the class leader, they must be trying to leave a good impression on the squad leader, so you don't worry." Li Qian showed a half smile. "I'm not worried about anything. The class monitor is no longer my target. Now, my target is teacher Zhu Bingqing," Fatian said righteously. "Well, or, you should change your target. Go after Tu Zhaozhao. There is a possibility. As for Teacher Zhu Bingqing, I guess I can only go to bed. Li Qian curled his lips. Are you still my brother? You are insulting me like this. Fatian was indignant. Brother, I'm doing this for your own good. Even a toad needs 2 wings to eat swan meat. Li Qian continued. Fatian rolled his eyes and raised his middle finger. After chatting with Fatian for a while, Li Qian went to the small pond. The pond was not small. With only 3 green pine fish, 2 golden turtles and a garfish, it seemed relatively empty. At this moment, the garfish was swimming leisurely. It seemed to like the environment here very much. Next to it, 3 green pine fish and 2 golden turtles were like younger brothers, following behind. It seems that it has become the leader of this small pond. Seeing that the garfish has adapted to the new environment, Li Qian is relieved. As for it not wanting to sign a contract with its mother Han Yuying, it doesn't matter. Later, let the mother and Ah Fu sign a contract. Looking at the small pond, and then at the big pond next to the small pond, Li Qian turned his head and looked in a certain direction. There, it is further south of the base. What are you looking at? Fatian asked. I'm thinking, it's still koi now, no problem, if it evolves into a green-scaled dragon. With the size of the green-scaled dragon, these 2 ponds can hold a few, and they must be uncomfortable staying in it. Li Qian said. That's a problem, what do you think? Fatian frowned. Li Qian pointed to the south. From our base, about 3 kilometers to the south, there is a depression. At present, it seems to be barren. About 1 kilometer to the south is the Lingshui River. He looked longing. If we buy or rent these 3 kilometers, together with the depression, and then introduce water from the Lingshui River, we should be able to create an artificial lake in a short time. With the area of the depression, if it is filled into an artificial lake, there will be a habitat for the Qinglin Jiao. Fatty Ann's mouth twitched. Qianzi, aren't we taking a big step? It would be bad if we get hurt. Li Qian smiled. Imagine it first. It was night. In a room on the 5th floor of Building No. 1, Zhaoyang Cultivation Base, Li Qian was meditating. In the dark, the feeling was very strong. The mental power also began to boil. The next moment, Li Qian suddenly opened his eyes, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. Now, he concentrated his mind and mobilized his spiritual power, like a substance, and suddenly crashed into a barrier. Boom boom boom. In the sea of consciousness, an invisible barrier shattered. The spiritual power suddenly started to surge like a wild horse. I don't know how long it took, but the boiling spiritual power in my mind gradually calmed down. Li Qian took a long breath, finally broke through to the elite level. At the same time, in the beast control space, Qizi also broke through to the elite level, and even soared all the way to the elite level 4. The space wall of the beast control space changed from sea blue to dark blue. With a thought, Qizi's information appeared in front of him. Name, Qinglin Jiao Qizi. Attributes, water, wind. Level, elite 4th level. Potential, overlord level 5. Skills, fish leap break limit climb waterfall perfect water arrow proficient water arrow 10,000 arrows proficient water cannon proficient high pressure water cannon beginner pray for rain beginner wind blade mastery gale slash proficiency tornado beginner dragon claw beginner dragon soaring beginner. Qizi's information made Li Qian happy. Thanks to the battles, training and promotion during this period, many of its skill levels have been improved. In addition, he also learned 2 new skills. Pray for rain. Weather skills. It seems to only have the ability to change the weather, but its effects go beyond that. In fact, with the right combination, this is a magical skill. There is also Dragon Claw, which is a powerful attack and killing skill. It makes up for the weakness of the blue-scaled dragon's lack of close combat ability. In short, Li Qian is very satisfied with this promotion. Unknowingly, Li Qian was promoted to the elite level without making any announcement. Nor did he contract a second pet beast. There is no rush in this matter. He had to plan carefully for this second pet beast. After calming down his inner joy, his life returned to 2 points and 1 line again. School, training base. I don't know if it was influenced by the breakthrough. 1 day later, good news came again. Ah Fu's waterfall climbing skills were perfected. Previously, because he could not go to the artificial waterfall for training, and the pond at the training base had not been completely renovated, Li Qian used those 2 days to use the limit breaking stone to upgrade its diving skills to the limit breaking level. Therefore, AFU has gathered the conditions for evolution. AFU has gathered the conditions for evolution, but this does not mean that it can smoothly become a blue-scaled dragon. Climbing the waterfall is also a huge test. Uncle N, I have koi here that can evolve. I wonder how prepared they are for what I told you last time. Li Qian made a phone call. And Haonian's voice rang on the other end of the phone. Xiao Qian, I have been thinking about the evolution site early in the morning, but waterfalls with a height of more than 100 meters do not exist in Lingshui City. I have also investigated the surrounding area. Judging from the current situation, Yunwu Mountain Scenic Area is really the best choice. Okay, please contact the scenic area. We need at least 1 night. By the way, Captain Liu Changfeng of the Yunlin City Special Operations Team may be able to help with this matter. Li Qian said. He knew very well that a place like this could only be encountered but not sought, and there was no use in trying to live a good life. However, he still had some grudges. He always felt that Yunwu Mountain was not as simple as it seemed. Was the last attack by the cultists of the ancient gods really just an accident? After 2 more days of intensive training at the base, Li Qian left for Yunlin City with his mother Han Yuying and Fatty An on Wednesday. Also going there were Fatty An's Tantu and Liu Chengfeng's Aaron, as well as the 3 koi carps with the highest potential in the base. The group arrived at the high-speed rail station. At the exit, Liu Chengfeng was already waiting. Classmate Li Qian, welcome to Yunlin City again. This time, I am responsible for your safety. By the way, did Aaron bring it? Li Qian handed over a beast control ball and said, the koi you chose is very good. It was trained very hard. In terms of potential alone, Aaron and Tantu are equally matched. However, Aaron has a better personality, a bit like Kizai. He trains very hard, and Li Qian is more optimistic about him. A large group of people headed straight for the Yunwu Mountain Scenic Area. Classmate Li Qian, just now, the Scenic Area Management Office has sent a message that the area around the Beizong waterfall has been cleared. From now on until 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, there will be no tourists there, Liu Chengfeng said. At this time, it was already dark and it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. Li Qian nodded, let's go then. Before we even got close, there was still a warning sign 200 or 300 meters away from the Beizong waterfall. Dear tourists, the Beizong waterfall scenic spot in front of us is under maintenance and is not open for the time being. Please forgive me. A cordon was also raised. It was obvious that this was Liu Chengfeng's handiwork. Li Qian glanced at him gratefully and said, Captain Liu, thank you for your trouble. It's just a little effort. Liu Chengfeng waved his hand. A group of people came to the pool under the Beizong waterfall. Kizai, come out too. After arriving at the destination, Li Qian didn't waste any time and directly summoned Kizai. Kizai plunged into the water with a splash, revealing a dragon head, with expectations in his eyes. After all, AFU is its old comrade in arms. After summoning Kizai, Li Qian worked without stopping and released today's protagonist Ah Fu. In addition, Tantu, Aaron, and the 3 koi carp trained at the base to climb the waterfall were also released. Seeing that Li Qian was ready, Fatty An and Liu Chengfeng were very conscious and retreated directly outside the cordon. The method of evolution is the core secret of a trainer. If Li Qian didn't take the initiative to speak and stayed on purpose, it would be a big offense. Last time, Fatty An didn't understand this, and Li Qian didn't realize it, but this time it was different. And Haonian had already reminded him before he came. Liu Chengfeng also saw Kizai's evolution last time, but by the time he discovered it, Kizai was almost at the top. In the end, he couldn't tell what Li Qian threw in the dark. In short, last time, the 2 of them had a reason for it, either they didn't realize it, or they didn't have time. This time, we can't do it knowingly. Seeing Fatty An and Liu Chengfeng leaving, Li Qian didn't say anything. Since it was the rule of trainers in this world, there was no need for him to be innovative. And this rule, in the final analysis, also protects his interests. Mom, you sign a contract with Ah Fu first. Without starting immediately, Li Qian turned his attention to his mother, Han Yuying. Since she had been told what to do before coming, her mother Han Yuying did not hesitate and signed a contract with Ah Fu directly. Ah Fu has been raised in Li Qian's family for nearly 20 years and has a strong emotional foundation for Li Qian's family of 3. Signing a sole contract with Han Yuying, there is nothing unacceptable to it. The contract was signed quickly, and Li Qian no longer wasted time, took out the dragon bone powder and fed it to Ah Fu. Ah Fu swallowed a sufficient amount of dragon bone powder and immediately began to rush towards the waterfall. Soon, it turned into a water line and began to flow upstream along the waterfall. While watching this scene, Li Qian began to climb the stone steps next to him like last time. Different from the time Kizai evolved, this time, he was even more worried. Because he knew that although the evolutionary conditions of the two were generally the same, Kizai's mental attributes were obviously higher than Ah Fu's. Kizai can grit his teeth and insist on climbing to the top of the waterfall, but Ah Fu may not be able to do it. The fact is exactly what Li Qian thought. When he reached about 2/3 of the way, Ah Fu couldn't climb anymore. Seeing this scene, Li Qian shook his head. It seems that today is going to fail. He murmured to himself. Fortunately, it is not the same as before. He is no longer in financial crisis. The crystal necklace contains hundreds of kilograms of dragon bone powder, which is enough for him to squander. If it doesn't work tonight, I can only go back and rest for a while, and continue the challenge tomorrow night. If it doesn't work tomorrow night, I have to keep putting it off. Li Qian has no shortage of time. At school, he has awakened and is relatively free, and the teacher doesn't care much. But even if there is no shortage of time, even if there is an opportunity to continue the challenge, he does not want to use this opportunity. It would be the best if we could succeed the first time. It's not a matter of making great efforts, failing again, or exhausting 3 times, but Li Qian can clearly feel that the blue-scaled dragon that succeeds once will definitely have higher potential in the future. Frowning at Ah Fu, who was almost at the end of his life, Li Qian had a thought in his mind and thought of something, so he contacted Kizai through the soul contract. Kizai followed his orders and also used the waterfall climbing skill. With his current dragon body, using this skill to climb a 100-foot waterfall was a piece of cake. Its speed was extremely fast, and the water line it stirred up was also extremely thick. In just a moment, it came to Ah Fu's side, and then past him. Because Kizai joined in the trouble, the water flow of the waterfall was pushed up a lot, which was equivalent to holding up an umbrella for Ah Fu, and the pressure on the ladder was greatly reduced. Ah Fu continued to climb, and with Kizai's help, although it was still a bit difficult, he finally climbed up without any danger as the potential energy of the water flow was greatly reduced. Chapter 51. Ah Fu finally climbed to the top of the waterfall and passed the most difficult level. Li Qian took a long breath and was determined. Without any hesitation, he suddenly exerted force and threw the wind chime fruit in his hand. In order to prevent accidents, he even prepared 2 wind chime fruits this time, just because he was worried that even if one wind chime fruit didn't cause trouble, he would still have another chance. It turned out that his worries were unnecessary. Compared with climbing to the top of the Beizong waterfall and holding the wind chime fruit in your mouth, it is not difficult at all, but the difficulty is also quite limited. The wind chime fruit was thrown by him. Ah Fu, who had trained many times, saw the right moment, suddenly exerted his strength, leapt to the top, and caught it accurately. Li Qian saw this and smiled at the corner of his mouth. Finally, his efforts were not wasted. At the top of the Beizong waterfall, Ah Fu grabbed the wind chime fruit and swallowed it violently. As the bell fruit was swallowed, the whole body of Ah Fu's fish glowed with light of evolution. The light of evolution had already emerged when climbing the waterfall before, but it was nothing compared to what it was like now. The light of evolution suddenly flourished, and Ah Fu's entire fish was enveloped in the light, like a day sun embedded at the top of the waterfall. Fortunately, the area around the Beizong waterfall has been isolated at this time. The departure of Lu Chengfeng and Fatian also served as a partial warning. Otherwise, if they were seen by others, it would definitely cause a sensation. Just like the last time Kizai evolved, the light of evolution flourished, and then they fell like meteors one after another, falling into the pool at the bottom of the waterfall. Such a splendid scene made the 5 koi in the pond fascinated. At this moment, they seemed to realize that training was not only a requirement of the 7th boss and Fu boss, but also an opportunity to change their own destiny. The light rain quickly fell and disappeared without a trace. Then, in Li Qian's expectant eyes, wow, the sound of water breaking suddenly sounded. A standard oriental dragon head slammed out of the water, majestic and domineering. The sharp conical horn, the long and sparkling dragon body, and the elegant dragon tail swaying in the wind all reflect the combination of combat effectiveness and aesthetics. Ah Fu broke through the water and soared into the sky in an instant, majestic and breathtaking. This is the blue scale Jiao, a pet beast with overlord level potential. Even though he has seen it in Kizai, Li Qian still never gets tired of it. He used the Eye of True Sight to investigate, and Ah Fu's information was immediately displayed in front of him. It was no different from when Kizai had just completed his evolution, but his level was Elite Level 3 and he had mastered the Dragon Claw skill. However, I haven't seen the Pray for Rain skill, and I don't know if it can be mastered only after reaching the Elite Level 4. Of course, Li Qian also had a guess. Although Ah Fu's potential is also Overlord level 5 inches under the True Vision, there is a difference between Overlord level 5 inches and Overlord level 5. The reason why it failed to master the Pray for Rain skill should be a reflection of this difference. Its potential is ultimately weaker than Kizai. Li Qian was not surprised that its strength reached the Elite 3rd level. In fact, when Kizai just completed his evolution, his level could also go straight to the Elite level. The reason why he was stuck at the ordinary 9th level was only because of the constraints of his own strength as a beast master. As soon as he broke through, it followed suit and advanced to the Elite level, reaching the 4th level. This proves that if there are no shackles, Kizai can at least reach the Elite 3rd level when evolving. Ah Fu and his mother Han Yuying formed a contract. Her mother Han Yuying's mental power has already exceeded that of the elite, so naturally there is no restriction in this regard. This is Ah Fu. Her mother, Han Yuying, was standing by the pool. She couldn't help but murmured. Even though she had witnessed the whole process with her own eyes, she was still shocked and unbelievable. No wonder there is a saying in the animal control world that a powerful breeder has the ability to turn decay into magic. After witnessing Ah Fu's evolution tonight, she is convinced that her son is such a breeder. At this moment, she no longer has to worry about the future of the breeding base, and her heart is full of pride. This is her son, a genius breeder. With such a talented trainer's son here, the base will definitely be able to overcome the current difficulties, and the future will be infinitely bright. How is Ah Fu's evolutionary feedback? Li Qian looked at his mother Han Yuying and asked. It's very good. His mental power has increased a lot. He should have entered the late elite stage. Mother Han Yuying said with a smile. Li Qian also nodded with satisfaction. This is why he asked his mother Han Yuying to contract Ah Fu in advance. The evolutionary feedback of Ah Fu and Kizai, who are leaping over the dragon's door, is unmatched by ordinary evolution. This has been confirmed by Li Qian. This time, Ah Fu evolved, so naturally he couldn't waste such a good opportunity. Just as Li Qian was talking to his mother Han Yuying, Lu Chengfeng and Fatian arrived. They had already seen Kizai and Ah Fu flying into the sky. Naturally, he knew that evolution had been completed, but he did not continue to avoid it. They rushed closer and stared at the two dragons suspended in midair. Both of them were filled with envy. Aaron, did you see that in the future, like Ah Fu, you will become a majestic blue-scaled dragon, so keep training and strive to complete the evolution as soon as possible. Withdrawing his gaze, Lu Chengfeng walked quickly to the water pool and faced Koi Aaron said in the water. The 5 koi fish in the water jumped out of the water one after another, excited. Ah Fu jumped over the dragon gate and completed the transformation from a koi carp to a green-scaled dragon, from a useless pet to a divine pet. This scene not only shocked them deeply, but also deeply stimulated them. The 7th boss can do it, and Boss Fu can do it. They are both koi, so why can't they do it? At this moment, ambition grew in their hearts at the same time, and their desire to become stronger was stronger than ever. After the evolution was completed, there was no point in continuing to stay. Li Qian took back Kizai and Wu Yu, and his mother Han Yuying also took back Ah Fu, and the 4 of them returned to the hotel. The next day, the 3 returned to Lingshui City. Near noon, the mother and son returned to the breeding base, and Li Chengyang rushed over immediately to inquire about the situation. Mother Han Yuying smiled without saying a word and summoned Ah Fu directly. Seeing the majestic Fu floating in the air, his father Li Chengyang was stunned for a moment, and then said directly to Li Qian, "Son, prepare a blue-scaled dragon for me too." Hearing this, Li Qian couldn't laugh or cry. "Dad, the blue-scaled dragon is a pet beast of both feng shui and feng shui. It doesn't match your beast-controlling talent. There is no need to force a contract. Isn't it a pet beast with overlord-level potential? Later, I will find an Earth-type one for you. I guarantee it will be no worse than the blue-scaled dragon." He continued to comfort him. "By the way, how are you preparing for the enclosure bear's evolution?" After comforting him, he asked. Having said this, Li Chengyang's face showed a hint of joy. "The core rock is ready. Next, we just need to train the racial skill, stone armor, to the perfect level. The evolution method of enclosure bears has been disclosed, and even if you don't go to a breeding association, you can complete the evolution at home. There are many public examples of the evolution from enclosure bears to mountain giant bears. The mother's gray pea pigeon is also one of them. The reason why they chose these two pet beasts at that time was that the evolution method was simple and the evolution materials were relatively cheap, which were the most important considerations. They simply cannot afford an evolutionary path that is too expensive, or even one that has no public evolution path. This is also one of the criteria for most ordinary people to choose pet animals. Of course, this kind of pet beast has limitations. The most common problem is that its potential is relatively low. For example, the enclosure bear chosen by his father Li Chengyang, even if it evolves into a mountain giant bear, the ceiling of its potential is to command the middle level. Among them, there are strong and weak individuals. The strong ones can reach the 6th level of command, while the weak ones can only command the 4th level. Mother's storm eagle is even worse. Even if it has completed evolution, its potential can only reach the leader level. However, the evolution of the storm eagle will be correspondingly simpler. As long as the strength is trained to the upper limit of the racial potential, which is the elite 5th level, and then combined with the pet beast that has mastered the breath of wind, the evolution can be completed under the guidance of the energy of this skill. As for the breath of wind skill, although it is relatively rare, if you go to the Breeders' Association, you will definitely be able to find pet beasts that have mastered this skill. It's nothing more than a matter of spending some money. In fact, the evolution routes of pet beasts disclosed by the Federation, the Beast Masters Association, and the Breeders' Association are far more than just these two pet beasts. It's a beautiful name, and it will benefit the vast number of beast masters. In fact, it has indeed blessed a large number of ordinary beast masters. However, most of these disclosed evolutionary routes are pet beasts with relatively simple evolutionary methods and relatively average potential. Some pet beasts can even naturally complete evolution as long as a certain racial skill reaches a certain level, or their own strength crosses a certain threshold. There is no difference between the way this kind of pet beast evolves, whether it is public or not. As for those evolutionary routes of great value, such as the evolution method from koi carp to blue-scaled dragon, they will basically not be made public. These evolutionary methods are either in the hands of the Federation, the Beast Masters Association, the Breeders' Association, or in the hands of some large financial groups, large organizations, and large guilds. If a Beast Master wants to complete the corresponding evolution, he can do it. As long as he goes to these places and pays a large sum of money, he can complete it. Li Qian could understand this. After all, if there are no huge profits, who would be willing to invest huge funds and manpower to study the evolution of pet beasts? The relatively simple and low-potential evolutionary methods that are made public can also ensure that ordinary beast masters have a way to rise. There are a large number of beast masters with good combat effectiveness among the people. This is beneficial both in dealing with emergencies and in maintaining the Federation's overall combat effectiveness. Li Qian had read public information on this subject and naturally understood how enclosure bears evolved, so he was ready to take matters into his own hands and help his father's enclosure bears evolve. Now, after all, he is also a trainer, a serious one, although he has not passed the trainer test. However, he didn't care about the assessment. When he got to the Beast Control University, as long as he had the ability, he could complete it in the school. It is strange to say that Lu Chengfeng deliberately concealed it for himself, which is understandable. After all, he did not know his thoughts and was afraid of causing misunderstanding. But Zhou Weiping, who met Kizai last time, why didn't he spread the news? Do you think your blue-scaled dragon was accidentally contracted? Didn't it evolve from koi? Otherwise, if word spreads, the Breeders' Association of Lingshui City will already take the initiative to deliver the certificate. But this is good, at least it can be quiet for a while. As for the training certificate, as long as the ability is there, it is not something that can be easily obtained. The fact was exactly as Li Qian had guessed. Last time, Zhou Wei did meet Kizai, but he only thought that it was Li Qian who was so lucky that he directly contracted a blue-scaled dragon that had completed its evolution. Although this kind of thing is rare, it has not never happened. Not to mention the blue-scaled dragon, even if it were a dragon egg, some lucky people would get one in the wild by chance. Of course, at the same time, he will also ask others, such as Anjia, Gao Yaxin, Lu Changfeng, etc., to see if he can find a way to evolve the enclosure bear with more potential. Or check out the official pet forum, which is also a good direction. In short, just be prepared. A Fu's evolution is also a rare guarding force for the Sun training base. The training base is located in the suburbs, not very far from the urban area, and belongs to the urban-rural area. Under normal circumstances, there will be no danger. After all, people from the Public Security Bureau can arrive quickly. But now, with Kizai, Ah Fu, his father's enclosure bear, and his mother's gray bean pigeon, the safety level has improved a bit. Even if it is a commander-level beast, it will not get much benefit if it appears in the base. Of course, if you add in the guard force deployed by the An family in the base, it will be even more impregnable. Li Qian knew very well that he had mastered the evolution method from koi carp to blue-scaled dragon. Although this news has not spread yet, it will be known to others sooner or later. After all, if you rely on this evolutionary method to gain benefits, it is impossible to block the news. Neither Li Qian nor Anshi has any intention of keeping it secret forever. When the time comes, I will go to Zhongnan Beast Control University and leave my parents in the training base. If I can't protect myself, some people will be tempted to take dangerous measures. It was only a small matter that some pet animals were stolen. If his parents were injured or even a more serious accident occurred, Li Qian would definitely regret it. Furthermore, although Gao Yaxin announced to the public that the magic core had been taken away by her, it may have also attracted the attention of the Black God sect. But this is just a guess. If there are still cultists from the Black God sect staying in Lingshui City, or if they try to retaliate against themselves, it will be troublesome. Therefore, Li Qian has made up his mind to use these 3 months to quickly improve the strength of his father Li Chengyang and mother Han Yuying before going to the Beast Control University. Her mother, Han Yuying, has already made a contract with Ah Fu and will not be able to make a contract with a third pet beast in a short period of time. For her, the only way to improve her strength is to evolve the gray bean pigeon, but even if she evolves into the storm eagle, her potential is only comparable to the commander level. Although there was improvement, it was not very obvious, so he wanted to see if he could join his father Li Chengyang's enclosure bear. Find ways to evolve with greater potential. In addition, his father Li Chengyang is also preparing for his second pet beast. Since he has made a promise, he will definitely honor it and will not break his promise. Amid all the commotion, a new weekend arrived. This weekend, Li Qian handed over the task of training 5 koi carp to his mother Han Yuying. Her mother, Han Yuying, is also very happy to do this. After all, for her, every time a blue-scaled dragon evolves, it means at least 100 million in income. For this reason, she and her father Li Chengyang went to the pet market countless times to see if they could buy some more potential koi. Because pet beasts like koi are so common and exist in large numbers, even ordinary people who do not have contracted pet beasts can occasionally catch a few with fishing rods, so there is no shortage of pet beast markets. Father Li Chengyang and mother Han Yuying ran down here again and again, and naturally they gained something. Currently, there are more than a dozen koi carps with good potential in the central pond. In order to distinguish them from Aaron and his 5 first-generation koi, her mother Han Yuying called them the second-generation koi. As for Kizai and Ah Fu, they are naturally veteran-level pets, beings that are occasionally released for the fish to admire. Needless to say, for her mother Han Yuying, who has worked in the base for more than 10 years, she knows much better than Li Qian how the base should operate. So after learning that Li Qian had a class reunion during the day, she directly said to them, "Go quickly, don't keep your classmates waiting." She didn't know what happened suddenly. She blinked strangely. Graduation is about to happen. Son, if there is a girl you like, confess your love boldly and don't leave any regrets. When Li Qian heard this, he almost staggered and fell to the ground. He seriously doubted whether his mother had the marriage-inducing disease that most elders would suffer from. But I'm only 18 years old and haven't graduated from high school yet, why should I be so crazy? Mom, you are overthinking it. Recently, I have been so focused on studying that I have no time to think about these things. Li Qian touched the non-existent beads of sweat on his forehead, explained casually, and then said in embarrassment, flee in despair. When he arrived outside the breeding base, Fatian was already waiting for him in his cool red sports car. Li Qian walked straight over. Without saying a word, he opened the door and entered. With a casual glance, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Inside the car, Fatian was seen like a lump of fat embedded in the driver's seat. Of course, none of this was important. What was important was that today, he was dressed up enough to look like a human. An oversized burgundy suit and trousers, paired with a plaid tie, and his hair was combed shiny. Li Qian looked at Fatian's exaggerated dress and couldn't help but ask, "We are going to a party, not a blind date. You are dressed like this, like a three-tailed cow in heat. Isn't it a bit exaggerated?" Fatian glanced sideways at Li Qian. He felt extremely good about himself. What do you mean by a three-tailed cow in heat? It has no aesthetics at all. This is the most popular upper-class dress at the moment. Come on, as far as your taste is concerned, tisk tisk tisk. Li Qian looked up and down, then covered his face with his hands. He was thinking about whether he should separate from this guy when he arrived. Otherwise, he was worried that he would be looked at differently by others. Facts have proved that Li Qian was overthinking it, because after arriving at Taoyuan Villa, he discovered that Fatian was not the only one of the three-tailed cows today. At the entrance of the villa, there are many students dressed like humans and dogs, and among them, there are many female students. Of course, it may not be appropriate to describe them as human-like or dog-like. To be precise, they are beautiful and beautiful. Li Qian couldn't help but rub his eyes. He wondered if he was out and couldn't keep up with the times. After seeing that Tu Zhaozhao, Li Lanying, and Liang Yumei, several pretty girls with good beast-controlling aptitudes, only applied a little makeup, they roughly understood what was going on. This party was said to be a class party, but because graduation was imminent and many students had not yet awakened to the beast-controlling space, it took on an unusual meaning. To put it bluntly, today, many students choose to turn into three-tailed cows and green peacocks. Except for a few people, it is because they show off their stink or have other purposes. For example, Fatian, in all likelihood, it is to attract Tu Zhaozhao. It's a little clumsy, but besides that, it's more about paving the way for the future and building relationships. Not surprisingly, these students who are destined to attend the Beast Control University and achieve good results in the future will become highly sought after on occasions like today. Thinking of this, Li Qian couldn't help feeling a little emotional. This person had already started to sort himself out before he even left the campus. It seems that not only in the bustling metropolis of the past life, but also in this life, in this beast-controlling world where great power belongs to oneself, some things will not change. Li Qian originally came here to eat and drink, but when he arrived, he saw that the party had changed drastically, and he instantly lost interest. He shook his head and secretly decided in his heart that he would never come to such a gathering again even if he was killed. But at this moment, it would be a bit inappropriate to leave. After all, we will be here for more than a month, so there is no need to be too embarrassed. So he endured it. He followed a large group of people into the Taoyuan Resort Villa, and not long after, they arrived at the Holiday Inn in the resort. Since it's a party, eating and drinking are indispensable. Although it's not time for dinner yet, there is no time limit for the buffet party. The buffet will be arranged on the third floor of the Holiday Inn, in an open-air sky garden. In the sky garden, there are rockeries, green trees, flowers and plants, and the scenery is very good. It is quite pleasant to eat, drink, chat in such a place, and occasionally overlook the pavilions, waterside pavilions and corridors in the villa. This was Li Qian's plan at the beginning. But gradually, some classmates came up to chat from time to time, which disturbed his interest and made him feel a little annoyed. Seeing Fatty and having a lively chat with a girl with a pretty face, Li Qian couldn't help but laugh. That girl was not from his class yet, but Li Qian had the impression that she was from the next class. Not paying attention to these things, Li Qian found an opportunity and went directly to the Sky Garden on the third-floor rooftop. He arrived at the first floor of the hotel and left the hotel without hesitation. Entering the resort, Li Qian took his time and took a stroll. Rather than bragging about it, it is obviously a better choice to take a stroll inside the villa and enjoy the beautiful scenery. It has to be said that this Taoyuan villa is indeed the top resort in Lingshui City. Not to mention anything else, the scenery in the villa is truly worthy of the word, top class. After walking around for a while, the sound of footsteps gradually became clearer behind me. Li Qian ignored the footsteps and continued to enjoy the scenery by himself. It seems that you are not very interested in this kind of party. Li Qian ignored it, and an elegant female voice suddenly sounded from behind. Li Qian turned around and saw it was Li Lanying. He smiled lightly and said, to each other. Li Lanying also smiled and walked over slowly. If I had known it was such a party, I wouldn't have come. She walked to Li Qian and found a stone pier. She didn't mind at all and sat down directly. Pure gatherings like the camping and spring outings in the first and second years of high school should never happen again. Li Qian glanced at her, also found a stone pillar and sat down. This kind of thing is always inevitable. Yes, people change. Li Lanying's voice sounded a little emotional, and don't you think that the reason why they do this is to adapt to life after graduation in advance? Li Qian took a breath and his voice became a little playful. It's not like you to be sentimental and sentimental. When Li Lanying heard this, she immediately became interested. Then what should my character be? Li Qian thought for a while and said, quiet and elegant, without fighting against the world. Li Lanying covered her mouth and chuckled, thank you for the compliment. Li Qian spread his hands and said, I'm just telling the truth. Contrary to the class leader Tu Zhao's heroic appearance, boldness and forthrightness, Li Lanying, the meditation class representative, is known as a quiet beauty. That quiet and elegant temperament also attracted many fans. There are no fewer boys who have a crush on her than Tu Zhao. Li Lanying did not continue the topic. She changed the subject and asked, I am about to graduate. Have you thought about which Beast Control University you want to apply for? Li Qian's goal is Zhongnan Beast Control University, but he did not say it out loud. He said casually, I haven't even taken the college entrance examination, and I don't know the score yet. He had a good impression of Li Lanying in front of him, but at this time, except for Fatian, the classmates in the class seemed to have more barriers. He doesn't want to talk about shallow things and deep things. And Li Qian believed that even if he didn't say it, Li Lanying should be able to guess it. After all, Lingshui City is in Zhongnan Province, and most students from Lingshui Yusho High School will give priority to Zhongnan Yusho University. Li Lanying didn't want to expose it. She said softly, with your results and the fact that you have awakened the Beast Control space, not to mention Kyoto Beast Control University and Zonghai Beast Control University, there should be no problem with the other 6 majors. Li Qian neither denied nor admitted, it's better to wait until the scores come out. It's a bit early to mention it now. Li Lanying nodded. She stood up from the stone pillar and looked in a certain direction. I have been to this Taoyuan villa several times before and I know where the scenery is better. Since neither of us is used to the atmosphere above, let's go out together. Take a walk. Okay. Li Qian did not refuse and nodded. In this way, the two walked side by side and took a walk in the villa. On the 3rd floor, in the Sky Garden, somewhere in the buffet, Lu Kuiwan glanced around, but he did not see that familiar and elegant figure. He couldn't help but frown. After dealing with a girl who came up to chat and try to make friends, he walked to the Sky Garden. His eyes were as bright as lightning, and he began to search. Soon, he saw 2 figures on the cobblestone path in a certain direction. It was Li Qian and Li Lanying. The two of them walked side by side, talking and laughing, and they seemed to be a dazzling match. Seeing this scene, his face quickly turned cold. The raging jealousy burned instantly. With great difficulty, I set up a stage and gathered so many classmates, but in the end, they all made wedding dresses for this kid. Li Lanying took Li Qian for a walk around Taoyuan Villa. She didn't introduce him either, she just accompanied him quietly. In fact, there is not much to introduce. Although the scenery here is good, they are all artificial attractions with no cultural heritage at all and no introduction is needed. The two of them took their time and wandered around the villa. The villa was not very big. It didn't take long for them to return to the location close to the entrance of the hotel. As soon as they returned, they saw a lot of people gathered at the entrance of the hotel not far away. Some are their classmates, and some are ordinary tourists who come here to play. Everyone gathered in a circle, seeming to be watching something in it. Li Lanying was slightly curious when she saw this scene. What are they looking at? Go and take a look. Li Qian was also curious. He walked over without hesitation. They entered the crowd and soon heard a familiar voice. At this moment, stars were standing in the center of the crowd, and the person talking to a supercar that was as black as ink was none other than the famous rich second generation of their class, who was also the sponsor of this gathering. 1. Lu Kuiwan. Let me introduce to you, this is the latest car robot, called Shadow Soul. Look, does it look cool? Let me tell you, it not only looks cool, but it also has great combat capabilities. Powerful, even ordinary elite high-level beasts are no match for it. After that, he seemed to glance at Li Lanying intentionally or unintentionally, and then suddenly gave the command, Shadow Soul, transform. As Lu Kuiwan finished speaking, a sizzling sound immediately sounded, and in an instant, the dark, Shadow Soul, body twisted. Soon, Shadow Soul transformed into a robot over 3 meters tall in full view of everyone. Buzz. As soon as the car robot that was dragging the cool guy to the sky appeared, it caused a commotion in the crowd. Many people cast envious glances at Lu Kuiwan. The latter also raised his chin quite proudly. Li Qian also saw the cool car robot. When he saw its mechanical eyes suddenly covered with red light and its whole body began to exude a dangerous aura, he couldn't help but frown and remind him, there's something wrong with this car robot, it seems a bit. Before the reminder sounded, the cool, Shadow Soul suddenly raised a pair of thick mechanical arms and then slammed them down. The sudden attack left no one with time to react. Whether it was the classmates in the class or the ordinary tourists who were watching, they were all dumbfounded, and froze on the spot. Everyone, get out of the way. I don't know who it was, but roared suddenly, and everyone started running around. However, the speed at which the mechanical arm came down was really too fast. It was okay for those watching from the outside, such as Li Qian and Li Lanying, who could avoid it by taking a step back, but those in the inner circle had no time to avoid it. At the critical moment, a burst of light from the summoning circle flashed, and then, a man stood up, and a pink cat with a long tail suddenly appeared out of thin air. Domira, protect. As a familiar command sounded, the pink cat pushed forward with both paws, and a translucent light curtain suddenly appeared. Li Qian turned his head and saw that the person who was directing Domira to use the Guardian skill was none other than Jingmei, Li Lanying. Seeing Domira standing up on Li Lanying's shoulders, Li Qian was quite surprised and subconsciously murmured softly, life system. Yes, Domira is a very rare life-type pet. It is much rarer and more powerful than the Yungu egg from the pet hospital. A translucent light curtain suddenly appeared, blocking the Shadow Soul robot's mechanical arm hammer attack at the critical moment. Buzz. The mechanical arm hit the light curtain hard, causing ripples to appear on the light curtain. Meow. On Li Lanying's shoulder, Damala made an anxious voice. On the light curtain, there are more and more ripples, and it is already on the verge of collapse. Obviously, Domira's guard cannot completely resist the mechanical arm attack of the Shadow Soul robot. It can only have a certain delay effect. As soon as the two skills came into contact, guard became unsustainable. Li Lanying hurriedly shouted, everyone, retreat. After everyone heard this, they reacted and quickly turned into birds and beasts. They quickly dispersed and an accident was avoided. When Li Qian saw this, he didn't hesitate and took action immediately. The light of the summoning circle lit up again. Kizai, a blue-scaled dragon, suddenly jumped out. At the same time, Li Qian also took the time to use the Eye of True Sight to check the information about Domira and Shadow Soul. First is Domira's message. Name, Domira. Attribute, life. Level, Elite Level 2. Potential, Overlord Level 3. Skills, Cat Bite Mastery, Self-Healing Mastery, Healing Perfection, Healing Light Proficiency, Purification Proficiency, Guard Mastery. Damila's level actually reached the second level of Elite Level, which was higher than Kizai, which surprised Li Qian. Although Li Qian didn't know when Li Laniang woke up. However, it can be seen from Damila's level that she must have been awakened for some time. At least it must be earlier than myself. After reading Damila's message, the next step was the Shadow Soul's message. Name, Car Robot Shadow Soul. Attribute, Mechanical. Level, Elite 7th Level. Potential, Elite 9th Level. Skills, Cyclonus Perfect Mechanical Transformation Perfect Mechanical Repair Basic Mechanical Arm Proficient Crazy Shooting Proficient Flamethrower Proficient Laser Ray Basic. After learning the information about Shadow Soul, Li Qian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems that there is also a difference between car robots and car robots. Compared with Lu Kuiwan's Shadow Soul and Zhou Weiping's Mad Dragon No. 3, the gap is quite obvious. This can also be seen from the potential of the two. All this sounds long, but in fact, it only takes a glance. Everyone retreated for a distance, then looked back, and immediately discovered the blue-scaled dragon. The appearance of the blue-scaled dragon instantly caused a sensation. This is blue-scaled dragon. It's actually a blue-scaled dragon. Oh my god, I actually saw the blue-scaled dragon. Quote. Many people saw this scene and made a sound of surprise. Their pupils dilated slightly, and some even rubbed their eyeballs, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. Kizai, come on. Ignoring the shock and surprise of these people, Li Qian commanded Kizai and directly launched an attack stance. Even though it felt that the other party's aura was obviously more powerful than its own, it was not afraid of it. The move is a high-pressure water cannon. Bang! The violently rotating water ball shot out at an extremely fast speed. Shadow Soul was unable to avoid it and was directly hit. Boom! The power of the high-pressure water cannon was quite terrifying. It hit the Shadow Soul and knocked it down. Although such a sharp blow knocked down the Shadow Soul, Li Qian could see that the injury caused to it was not serious. Facts have proved this. Although it fell to the ground and crushed a large flower bed, its combat effectiveness did not suffer much. A black cannon barrel stretched out from its chest. Flamethrower. Fierce flames shot out from the barrel. High-pressure water cannon. Faced with the incoming blazing flames, Kizai was not afraid. The fighting spirit in his eyes rose, and he fired another high-speed rotating water ball. The water ball and the flame collided together, a sizzling sound came out, and white gas instantly filled a large area in front of the hotel. Fire Wind Slash. Seizing the gap where Shadow Soul had just stood up, Kizai's attack fell down again without any hesitation. The huge wind blade struck with a fierce momentum. Dragon Claw. At the same time as the fierce wind slash was sent out, Kizai stepped forward at the same time. A strong cold light appeared on the dragon's claws, and he stabbed out. Zilla Zilla. The dragon claw with a strong cold light struck the Shadow Soul's chest, creating a hole. Because the mechanical body was destroyed, bunches of electric sparks burst out from the hole. Lu Kuiwan was very surprised to see Shadow Soul injured. The car robot he bought has reached the 7th level of the elite, and Li Qian's blue-scaled dragon probably hasn't been contracted for long, and will just join the elite if it dies. How could it be the opponent of Shadow Soul? However, reality slapped him hard in the face. In a hurry, his mind started to heat up, and without thinking too much, he shouted directly, "Li Qian, don't hurt my Shadow Soul." It would have been better if he didn't say this, but as soon as he said it, he instantly aroused public outrage. "Young man, your Shadow Soul almost killed us. You must give us an explanation for this matter." Lu Kuiwan, what on earth is going on? Yes, Lu Kuiwan, we are classmates after all, why do you want to harm us? Quote. Everyone angrily approached Lu Kuiwan, as if they wanted to eat him alive. When Lu Kuiwan saw this scene, a thin layer of sweat immediately appeared on his forehead. He hurriedly spoke to defend himself. No, I don't know what's going on. I don't care if you know it or not, I almost lost my life. I'll beat you up first. A hot-tempered bald brother didn't listen to his explanation at all and directly clenched his fists. Bang bang bang. The sound of fists hitting flesh soon sounded, and Lu Kuiwan was soon beaten into shrimp balls and bowed on the ground. When several other tourists saw this, they were not polite and joined in the fight with fists and kicks. When the classmates saw this, they did not dare to step forward to stop him. These elder brothers were not easy to mess with at first glance. Moreover, they had almost been implicated just now, so they had no intention of stepping forward to stop him. As a good buddy and best friend, Sun Shuhei shrank directly to the back. Li Lanying squinted her eyes, and when she saw this scene, she immediately reminded her, "Stop fighting, come up and help." If he didn't interrupt, Lu Kuiwan might really be beaten to death. After all, he was a classmate, and she didn't want to see this happen. Everyone was reminded by her voice, and they all suddenly realized, and then immediately called out their pet beasts. The more the merrier. Although there are only a few people present who have pet beasts, even if they have pet beasts, they are almost ordinary level ones, but they can't handle the large number of people. Summoned with a roar, a dozen pet beasts, cooperating with Kizai, sometimes water balls, sometimes flames, sometimes wind blades, beat the Shadow Soul without any power to fight back. Boom. In the end, Shadow Soul's two fists were unable to defeat the four hands, and he was beaten to the ground again. Just when everyone thought they had finally solved this guy. Sizzle. A mechanical octopus about the size of a washbasin emerged from the Shadow Soul's head. Li Qian couldn't help but frown when he saw this scene. What is this? Li Qian's words also raised the doubts of most people present. The mechanical octopus emerged from the head of the defeated Shadow Soul. No one knew what this thing was, so no one acted rashly. Bang bang bang. The 8 tentacles of the mechanical octopus twisted wildly and made a sharp scream. Although physically speaking, this guy shouldn't have much fighting power, but the way it showed its teeth and claws frightened everyone. Bang bang bang. After screaming again, the mechanical octopus pounced directly towards Fatian. Li Qian had quick eyesight and quick hands, and instantly used the soul contract to order Kizai. Kizai understood Li Qian's order and without hesitation, he directly used a water arrow. Call out. The water arrow was extremely fast and hit the mechanical octopus in an instant. Boom. The water arrow knocked away the mechanical octopus, and everyone immediately understood its details, and everyone was ready to move. However, although the mechanical octopus was knocked away, it did not die immediately. By coincidence, it landed next to Sun Shuhei. Sun Shuhei was startled and instinctively prepared to summon his pet beast. He has also contracted a pet beast, but because the contract has just been made, even though the pet beast's potential is very good and has reached the overlord level, its current strength is only at the ordinary level. He panicked and instinctively prepared to summon the pet beast, but his reaction was a little slow after all. Before he could summon the pet beast, the mechanical octopus had already ejected and pounced on him. Although the mechanical octopus is small, only the size of a washbasin, its sharp screams and 8 sharp mechanical tentacles all exude a dangerous atmosphere. Sun Shuhei was knocked down by the mechanical octopus and his whole body trembled. The already lit summoning circle was interrupted and dimmed instantly. Phew. Ah. One of the mechanical tentacles of the mechanical octopus suddenly stabbed Sun Shuhei's waist, and the latter immediately let out a miserable howl like a killing pig. Obviously, the mechanical octopus's sting had hurt Sun Shuhei, but he didn't know where. Its tentacles pierced and then lifted up suddenly, with a stabbing sound, and instantly ripped open Sun Shuhei's pants. The pants were torn, and in an instant, a large area of white flowers was exposed, and due to the movement of the mechanical tentacles, soon, it was not just the hips and crotch that were exposed. Li Qian even saw little Sun Shuhei, well, much smaller than expected. Many girls at the scene also saw this scene. Some were bold and looked curious, while others were shy and turned their heads. In addition, Li Qian also saw that there was a long blood mark on Sun Shuhei's body, almost starting from his waist and running through his thighs. It should be caused by the stabbing of the mechanical tentacles of the mechanical octopus just now. No wonder he was in pain, as if he was killing a pig. Just when everyone was at a loss, a familiar voice suddenly rang, "Don't let it get the phone." When Li Qian heard this, he reacted instantly, and then looked over immediately. he immediately saw that one of the mechanical tentacles of the mechanical octopus had rolled up a mobile phone. It was Sun Shuhei's cell phone. Seeing this scene, he suddenly realized. Just now, the reason why the mechanical octopus pounced on Sun Shuhei and stabbed directly into his waist and crotch was because of the mobile phone in Sun Shuhei's trouser pocket. But why is it looking for a mobile phone? Li Qian was puzzled. Under his puzzled gaze, the mechanical octopus suddenly melted into a pool of metallic liquid and got into Sun Shuhei's mobile phone. Li Qian was confused. What exactly is going on? In the midst of his half-confused, half-puzzled gaze, a figure quickly came over, and at the same time made a regretful voice, "I still got drilled by this guy." Li Qian looked at the person coming, full of confusion, and asked, "Principal Zhou, what on earth is going on?" Yes, the person who suddenly spoke was none other than Zhou Weiping, a security officer from the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau and someone who had a relationship with Li Qian. In addition, standing next to him were two security guards also wearing black uniforms. "I'll talk to you later. Let's deal with this guy first." Zhou Weiping looked at the mobile phone that was penetrated by the mechanical octopus with a focused look. While the two were talking, the mechanical octopus twisted and sizzling, and in just 1 or 2 breaths, it formed a robot that was only 30 or 40 centimeters tall. Seeing this scene, Li Qian was surprised. However, he quickly reacted and without any hesitation, he directly ordered Kizai to attack again. Feeling that the mobile phone robot that appeared again was agile and might be faster, Li Qian directly asked Kizai to use Water Arrow 10,000 arrows. Water Arrow, thousands of arrows, has reached the proficient level. When it is used, hundreds of water arrows will be shot out instantly. It looks quite spectacular. An artificial pool not far from the hotel entrance was drained instantly. "Good boy, your green-scaled dragon is indeed extraordinary." Zhou Weiping couldn't help but shout in surprise when he saw this scene. At the same time, he and 2 other security officers from the Public Security Bureau were not idle. They directly summoned the pet fire mastiff and used the flame spray skill from the other side. Although the power of the 2 layers of water and fire has been offset to some extent, it is still not something that the mobile phone robot can withstand. After throwing a few more skills, the mobile phone robot followed the car robot and was beaten to lose its combat effectiveness. The mechanical octopus did the same thing and got out of the mobile phone robot again, but it was obvious that this guy had lost his previous vitality. It pounced out, and its target was Zhou Weiping, who was the closest. The latter was not polite at all and commanded the fire mastiff to directly slap it with a fire claw. Zzz. The mechanical octopus was instantly beaten to arcs and sparks, and lost its combat effectiveness. It can be seen that after being beaten out of the parasite, its combat effectiveness was greatly reduced. Before, everyone did not seize the opportunity and let it catch a target. This time, everyone will not make this mistake again. In fact, it did not have this opportunity, because Zhou Weiping directly picked it up and put it into a black box. Seeing that the situation had calmed down, Li Qian walked over quickly and asked, "Security Officer Zhou, what's going on?" Zhou Weiping glanced at the black box in his hand, frowning. "It's the guys from the Exodus Society." Exodus Society. Zhou Weiping's words aroused Li Qian's doubts, and everyone present was also curious. They all heard this word for the first time, and it sounded like the name of an organization. Seeing everyone casting curious glances at him, Zhou Weiping thought for a moment, and then said, "This mechanic society has actually done a lot of bad things in our Eastern Sha Federation. There are traces of the Armed Destruction Society in Lingshui City. This matter is very serious and must be treated with caution. And since it happened once, there is no guarantee that it will happen a second or third time. If they met again, if the people knew nothing about it, the situation would inevitably happen again, so he decided to introduce this organization to everyone." After scanning everyone, he continued, "However, most of the actions of this organization are concentrated in first-class cities or special-class cities. They are rare in third-class cities like our Lingshui City. Of course, since it has appeared today, it may come out again to cause damage in the future." Someone looked anxious after hearing this, and then shouted loudly, "Handsome security guard, tell us about this weapon violation society, so that if we encounter it in the future, we can take precautions." Zhou Weiping was secretly happy when he heard the word, handsome guy, but on the surface, he was still the cold-hearted Sheriff Joe. He nodded and continued. Speaking of this Mechanical Desecration Society, it is different from other cult organizations. They focus on the mechanical system. After briefly introducing the Weapon Destruction Society organization, he kept talking and reminded, currently, we don't know what the purpose of this organization is. What is certain is that this organization is very destructive. As long as it is a mechanical beast without a contract, they can seize control through some special means. He pointed at the shadow soul that had turned into a pile of parts, and shook the black box in his hand. Here the mechanical octopus is one of their methods. Everyone looked fearful when they saw the black box in Joe Wiping's hand. Just like this little guy, if they hadn't been outnumbered and beat each other up just now, if one or two people had met, the consequences would have been disastrous. And secretly, there are not many of these mechanical octopuses. These mechanical octopuses can even temporarily possess electronic equipment or mechanical equipment and create a mechanical pet beast. Joe Wiping frowned. The more high-end electronic equipment or mechanical equipment, the more they like to possess it. After possessing it, the stronger the combat effectiveness will be. Quote. Hearing this, Li Qian had a look of surprise on his face, and finally understood why the mechanical octopus's first target was Fatian, and its second target was Sun Shuhei. Among the people present, if we talk about the high-end electronic equipment, they should be the most high-end among them. After hearing this, Fatian took out his phone and looked at it. He almost couldn't hold it back and threw it out. A broken phone almost killed me. It seems that I am more suitable for an elderly phone. After thinking about it, in the end, he didn't throw away his mobile phone. It cost tens of thousands, so just throwing it away was a bit wasteful. If he had money, he wouldn't bring it with him. Quote. Next, Joe Wiping introduced some things about the Mechanical Destruction Society. After about 10 minutes, he stopped. He has introduced everything he can, and it is not convenient for him to disclose some confidential information. He glanced around and found that both Sun Shuhei and Lu Kuiwan were still lying on the ground. The latter had passed out, while the former was clutching his thighs and waist tightly. His face was pale, and he looked like he had obviously lost too much blood. Seeing this scene, Joe Wiping asked with confusion on his face, why hasn't the ambulance arrived yet? There were injured people at the scene. He instinctively thought that someone must have called an ambulance. After all, this was common sense and there was no need to explain it specifically. If this continues, these two people may be in danger. Seeing that no one responded, he then asked, which one of you made the emergency call? The scene fell into an eerie silence for a moment. At this moment, Joe Wiping realized something was wrong. You guys haven't called an ambulance yet, have you? It stands to reason that this place is just on the outskirts of the city. It has been more than 10 minutes now. If an ambulance has been called, it must have arrived. Sheriff Joe, just now, your introduction was so good that we were so absorbed in listening that we forgot about it. Someone explained forcefully. Not far away, when Sun Shuhei, who was struggling to hold on, heard this, his head tilted and he fainted. The hatred in his heart was that if his cell phone hadn't been broken, he would have called him long ago. When Li Qian saw this scene, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. The reason why these guys didn't call the emergency number must have something to do with Lu Kuiwan. After all, people are called by some of them, and calling the emergency number is a bit like a cat crying over a mouse. As for other people, maybe they really forgot, or they thought someone would definitely call if they didn't call. After confirming his suspicions and looking at the miserable looks of Lu Kuiwan and Sun Shuhei, Joe Wiping didn't dare to delay and immediately dialed the emergency number. After waiting for a while, after the ambulance arrived and took Lu Kuiwan and Sun Shuhei away, Joe Wiping prepared to drive away. Seeing Joe Wiping preparing to leave, Li Qian gave him a look. The latter was stunned for a moment, and when he saw many people on the scene casting strange looks at Li Qian, he suddenly realized, and then he cooperated and said, "You guys, please disperse. Classmate Li Qian, you, come with me to the Public Security Bureau and make a note." When Li Qian heard this, he walked down the slope and said, "Students, I have to go to the Public Security Bureau to make a record. Moreover, something like this happened today. I'm afraid it will be meaningless to continue this gathering. I think, let's break up." After that, He got into Zhou Weiping's car and left the scene. Before leaving, he gave Fatty An a look. Fatty An immediately understood what he meant and stopped worrying. Many people at the scene, including many of Li Qian's classmates, looked regretful when they saw this scene. Some of them wanted to come up to chat and make friends, some of them probably wanted to inquire about the situation of the blue-scaled dragon. Li Qian knew that if he stayed, he would definitely have to deal with these troubles, so he simply cooperated with Zhou Weiping and left. Seeing Li Qian get into Zhou Weiping's car and leave quickly, Li Lanying narrowed her eyes slightly, with a thoughtful look in her eyes. At this moment, squad leader Tu Zhaozhao came over. She also looked at the direction Li Qian left. I didn't expect that Li Qian would be so lucky to contract a wild blue-scaled dragon. Yeah, Li Lanying responded casually and perfunctorily. On the car back to the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau, Zhou Weiping had the same idea as class monitor Tu Zhaozhao. Classmate Li Qian, you were really lucky to be able to contract a wild blue-scaled dragon. Li Qian looked forward, thinking about where he should get off the car, and casually replied, it's not luck, 'cause I evolved with my help. Oh, it evolved, Zhou Weiping continued subconsciously. At first, he didn't realize the meaning of Li Qian's words. However, he soon came to his senses and was a little unsure of the steering wheel in his hand. His eyes widened and he suddenly raised his voice, wait, what did you say? Evolved. Feeling the shaking of the car, Li Qian immediately held the handle above the door and reminded, Prosecutor Zhou, pay attention to safety. At the same time, I couldn't help but curse in my heart. Really, what a fuss. Being reminded by Li Qian, Zhou Weiping was shocked and reacted immediately, but the shock in his eyes did not diminish. Crazy Dragon 3, switched to autonomous driving mode immediately. Without hesitation, he immediately ordered to the car's central control screen, and then focused his eyes on Li Qian again. That look was like seeing some monster. Before I graduated from high school, I figured out how to evolve the blue-scaled dragon. Isn't it a monster? By the way, what is the degraded body of the blue-scaled dragon? It seems like koi. From koi carps to green-scaled dragons, it is said that this is an evolutionary problem that has stumped a large number of breeders, including many master breeders and even masters. As a result, it was solved like this. Solved by a high school student. Does this world need to be so magical? Although the cultivation of pet beasts, especially those related to evolution, sometimes depends not only on the level of the breeder, but also on luck and inspiration, but even so, it is still unbelievable to be cracked by a high school student. Listening to Li Qian's light words, Zhou Weiping felt that his head was a little confused. At this moment, after the order was issued, Quanglong 3 immediately responded, Kanglong 3 has received it, and the autopilot mode has been turned on. When the automatic driving mode was turned on, the car quickly stabilized. Not only was it stable, but the speed also increased a bit. Quanglong 3 took over the driving rights on its own, and the car was no longer at risk of traffic accidents. Zhou Weiping simply let go of the steering wheel and released the accelerator and brakes. He put all his attention on Li Qian, organized his words, and then said, classmate Li Qian. But as soon as he opened his mouth, he took back his words, changed his title and continued, no, Breeder Li. Zhou Weiping's coquettish attitude made Li Qian a little unbearable. He quickly waved his hand to interrupt, Principal Zhou, we have something to talk about. Hearing this, Zhou Weiping had a look of struggle on his face. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said his request, classmate Li Qian, I'm about to break through to the leader level, and I can contract the third pet beast. No, do you know if I can ask you to help me cultivate a blue-scaled dragon? Li Qian nodded after hearing this. Sure enough, as he expected, this was the reason. He smiled and held out a finger, okay, the market price is 100 million. He stretched out a finger and silenced Zhou Weiping. The latter pursed his lips, but didn't know how to refute or respond. Because Li Qian was not randomly raising the price, the green-scaled dragon had the potential to reach the 5th level of Overlord. The price of 100 million was not high, and it was considered kind. However, 20 to 30 million can still make up for it, but as for 100 million, it completely puts an end to his unreasonable thoughts. The most helpless thing is that he can't complain yet. Seeing Zhou Weiping's embarrassment, Li Qian's lips curved into a faint smile. In fact, he had no intention of helping him cultivate a blue-scaled dragon at such a price. Even if the other party is a security guard in Lingshui City and has a good salary, it is impossible for him to get such a large sum of money. He looked at Zhou Weiping. His voice was calm, but the topic suddenly changed. Of course, this is just the market price. Of course, you can't use the market price to cultivate blue-scaled dragons for Sheriff Zhou. In this way, I have promised Captain Liu Chengfeng of Yunlin City to breed a blue-scaled dragon for him. The breeding fee is 10 million. Li Qian looked at Zhou Weiping, retracted his outstretched finger, and then gestured out again. I will only accept 10 million from you. Zhou Weiping was overjoyed when he heard this. Although he was a little embarrassed to accept the favor, he was really eager to get a blue-scaled dragon, so he shamelessly agreed. He directly changed his address to Li Qian and promised without hesitation, "Classmate Li Qian, no, Brother Li, I'm really grateful. If you can use me, Brother Zhou, just ask." Li Qian pursed his lips and smiled, with a hint of joking in his voice, "Then I'll be so rude as to speak up." Quote. His words made Zhou Weiping speechless for a moment, and he didn't know how to respond. Although Zhou Weiping's gratitude was not watered down, according to normal people's logic, wouldn't such words be mostly polite? How could he still climb up the pole and bring it up so blankly? But this is good, as it satisfies Li Qian's request and can also repay some of the favor. As for repaying them all, it was simply impossible. He didn't expect to be able to repay all the 90 million favors at once. There is a breeding base in the southern suburbs, called the Zhaoyang Breeding Base. After revealing his intention, Li Qian did not hide it. He spoke in a calm tone and said, "I will take it down." Quote. Ahem. Li Qian said it lightly, but Zhou Weiping couldn't help but cough after hearing it. This guy is so eloquent that he never stops talking. He is always in the training base. Is this what a high school student can do? But when I thought that this high school student was Li Qian, I felt relieved and felt normal. Ignoring Zhou Weiping's gaffe, Li Qian kept talking and continued, "But that place is a bit off after all. If something happens, I may not be able to take care of it." Li Qian felt that this was enough. In fact, it was enough. Zhou Weiping was not stupid and naturally understood what he meant. This is a clear indication that he, or in other words, the Public Security Bureau, is needed to take charge of the safety of the Zhaoyang training base. Zhou Weiping did not agree immediately, but fell into deep thought. It is not difficult for Zhou Weiping to strengthen patrols in which areas, but this alone should not be able to meet Li Qian's requirements. But he is just a security guard, and it is not his decision to direct the guard force to a certain area. Li Qian saw Zhou Weiping's hesitation and added without any nonsense, "I feel that as a member of Lingshui City, helping the Public Security Bureau is protecting our own life and property. If possible, I would like to have a closer working relationship with the Sheriff's Department." He looked in a certain direction and said firmly, "As long as the Public Security Bureau is willing to set up a post with security guards stationed all year round near our Sunshine training base, I think our training base will not be stingy with the price of 10 million. A quota for cultivating a blue-scaled dragon is given every year." Breeding a green-scaled dragon for Zhou Weiping is completely different from breeding a green-scaled dragon for the Public Security Bureau every year at such a low price. For the safety of the training base, or in other words, for the safety of his parents, Li Qian put in a lot of effort. As for the use of public tools for private use, he doesn't care at all. This world is inherently unfair. Such a huge promise came out, and Zhou Weiping didn't know how to respond for a while. However, he was a man who had gone through a lot of storms. After a while, he calmed down and replied, "Brother Li, don't worry, I will treat this matter with caution and report to the director as soon as possible after I return." He sounded affirmative and gave his own inference, "Moreover, I believe that our director will agree to this matter 9 times out of 10. Compared to the steady acquisition of a blue-scaled dragon with 5th-level overlord potential for a price of 10 million every year, setting up a manned sentry near the sun cultivation base all year round is nothing at all. I believe that what Li Qian values is not the defensive power of the sentry itself, but the meaning of the sentry and the warning role it can play. As long as there are sentries, even the invisible intimidation can dissuade many young people from coveting. Then I'll wait for the good news from Brother Zhou." After receiving Zhou Weiping's reply, the joy on Li Qian's face became more obvious. He watched Quanglong 3 galloping forward, but the direction was not the Public Security Bureau, but after turning a corner, he drove straight to the southern suburbs. He smiled and said, "By the way, Brother Joe, don't I need to go to the Public Security Bureau to deal with it?" After Joe Wiping heard this, he waved his hand nonchalantly. "The hotel has complete surveillance video. Wherever you need to make records, you can do it." Following Li Qian's instructions, he was sent directly to the gate of the Jiaoyang training base. Joe Wiping ordered Quanglong No. 3 to return directly to the Public Security Bureau. In the car of Quanglong No. 3, he thought for a while, then took out his mobile phone and asked his colleagues in the bureau to look it up and got Lu Chengfeng's number. After getting Lu Chengfeng's mobile phone number, he dialed it directly without hesitation. Soon, the call was connected, and Joe Wiping greeted with a smile. "Captain Lu, hello, I am Joe Wiping from the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau." "Hello, Sheriff Joe." Lu Chengfeng's hearty voice sounded on the other end of the phone. "We are all brothers of the same system." After listening to Lu Chengfeng's programmed response, Joe Wiping said in a half-joking tone, "Well, why didn't you remind me about classmate Li Qian and the green-scale Zhao last time? That green-scaled dragon is named Kizai, haven't you seen it before?" Lu Chengfeng pretended to be confused and said, "Last time, I saw you were so calm, I thought you already knew about it." "Well, I thought it was wild." Joe Wiping knew clearly that Lu Chengfeng was deliberately joking, but Joe Wiping didn't know how to refute it. In the end, he had no choice but to sigh, "This is also my fault." His tone was quite emotional, and he continued, "I never thought that a high school student who has not yet graduated can actually study the evolution method of the blue-scaled dragon. It's true that empiricism kills people. It's not too late to know now." Lu Chengfeng said with relief, "Besides, classmate Li Qian is a local of your Lingshui city, and he has the advantage of being near the water and building first. This natural advantage cannot be compared with that of our Yunlin City Public Security Bureau. Quote, Your Yunlin City is a first-class city. Even if you can't get the blue-scaled dragon, there are other Overlord-level potential pets to choose from. Even if there is no other choice, we can still evolve the Fire Mastiff and Wolf Vulture to reach the Overlord-level potential." Joe Wiping half complimented and half complained. "Unlike us, staying in a third-level small city like Lingshui City, all resources are limited, and it is extremely difficult to make further progress. Brother Joe, we are all from the same system." After hearing this, Lu Chengfeng couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. "Although the Fire Mastiff and the Wolf Vulture can evolve a little further, you don't know what it takes to evolve. Even if we can redeem it with merit points, there will be no hope at all in 10 or 20 years. After a pause, he continued the topic and continued, "And even if the Fire Mastiff and Wolf Vulture complete the third stage of evolution, their potential may not be as good as the blue-scaled dragon." Finally, he said hopefully, "Finally, since Li Qian was able to study the evolution method from koi carp to blue-scaled dragon, he may not be able to study the evolution method above blue-scaled dragon in the future." After hearing this, Joe Wiping still didn't believe it. Is this really possible? In his heart, he still had the idea that Li Qian is just lucky, and a blind cat encounters a dead mouse. "I have confidence in Li Qian." Unlike Joe Wiping, Lu Chengfeng is quite sure. "Forget it, that kind of thing is too long-term." Joe Wiping shook his head and dropped the topic. "I'd better think about how to find koi fish with potential." Yes, before getting off the car, Li Qian told Joe Wiping the breeding conditions, and like Lu Chengfeng, he found at least one koi with high potential. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Lu Chengfeng couldn't help laughing as he remembered what he had done before. "This matter is something you should take seriously. I spent a lot of time on this in the beginning." He knows very well that koi fish are easy to find, but those with high potential are not easy to find. That afternoon, a group of people came to the Jiaoyang training base. This was within Li Qian's expectation. The blue-scaled dragon was exposed in public, and Joe Wiping already knew that Kizai was cultivated by himself. With so much information gathered, it would be too slow if the Lingshui Breeders Association has not responded yet. "Hello, classmate Li Qian, I am Zhao Qingchuan, the president of our Lingshui Trainers Association." A Mediterranean man in his 50s was the leader and took the lead in greeting. Behind him were 4 other people, the youngest of whom was probably over 30 years old. Hello, President Zhao, please sit down. Li Qian pointed to the sofa opposite in a living room on the 5th floor of Building 1 of the training base. After sitting down, the others remained silent. As the president of the association, Zhao Qingchuan spoke again and went straight to the topic. We heard that classmate Li Qian has studied the evolution method from koi carp to blue-scaled dragon. I wonder if it can be done. Let me see it. Follow me. Seeing how impatient they were, Li Qian didn't show any concern and took the 4 of them directly to the rooftop. Then he notified Kizai through soul bonding and stayed with Kizai in the central pond. AFU. After a few breaths, as 2 water splashes exploded in the central pond, Kizai and Afu broke out of the water one after another. Angong. They roared twice respectively, then used the dragon soaring skill, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the rooftop. Li Qian stretched out his hand, and Kizai and Afu rubbed their taps on his palm affectionately. The 5 members of the Lingshui City Breeders Association were mentally prepared when they saw this scene, but they were still shocked and were a little incoherent. He is a genius, he is truly a genius. Someone murmured to themselves and kept praising him. Zhao Qingchuan's eyes widened, as if he had thought of something exciting. I didn't expect that classmate Li Qian would have such outstanding nurturing talents at such a young age. President Zhao is overly praised. Li Qian was a little embarrassed by the praise. Although he knew that his current achievements mainly depended on himself, apart from the 100 million points of Goldfinger's help, he still couldn't help but feel a little shy in the face of such unyielding praise. To be honest, I feel really ashamed to see you achieve such an achievement at your age. Standing next to Zhao Qingchuan was Zhang Qilong, the vice president of the Lingshui Breeders Association, who also couldn't help but sigh. After sighing with emotion, he asked seemingly casually, I wonder which beast-controlling university Mr. Li Qian is going to apply for. Actually, with your achievements, you can definitely be admitted to Kyoto Beast-Controlling University or Zhonghai Beast-Controlling University. Well, it's still early. I haven't thought that far yet, Li Qian said casually. Although he already had a goal in mind, he didn't want to make a big announcement before passing the exam. By the way, with your achievements, Li Qian, you can actually try to apply for a senior trainer. After hearing this, Zhao Qingchuan understood what Li Qian meant and immediately spoke and changed the topic, but after all, we in Lingshui City it's just a 3rd-level city, and you can only apply for an intermediate trainer at most. It's enough to be able to apply for certification as an intermediate trainer. I have to trouble President Zhao about this matter. Li Qian smiled and said gratefully. As for the senior trainer, although he cares about it, he is not in a hurry to get it. As long as he has the ability, certification is a breeze. This is what I should do, Zhao Qingchuan said in a gentle voice. Next, Li Qian took 5 people from the Lingshui Breeders Association and walked around the Zhaoyang breeding base for a while. Due to poor management, the Zhaoyang training base has actually been quite defeated. When the 5 people saw the scene in the base, they originally had some thoughts, but when they heard that this was an industry that Li Qian had just acquired, they extinguished their thoughts. The 5 people came and left quickly, and they only stayed for less than 2 hours, which was quite efficient. The next day, Sunday, Li Qian still stayed in the training base. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, people from the Lingshui City Breeders Association arrived again. Also brought with them was Li Qian's intermediate cultivator certificate. After explaining some rights and obligations, they left without stopping. Li Qian returned to his office, turned on his computer, logged into the website of the Lingshui Breeders Association, entered the database, and checked it out. The online database of the Lingshui City Breeders Association actually has so many books. It's a bit unexpected. Li Qian couldn't help but sigh after entering the database and checking the information inside. It was close to dinner time, and just when Li Qian was about to stop browsing, a line of information appeared in his mind, which cheered him up. Inspiration value +5, the task progress at that time was 92%. Listening to the information in his mind and looking at the picture in his hand, Li Qian couldn't help but mutter to himself, it's actually the Frostfire Salamander. After entering the database of the Lingshui City Breeders Association website, Li Qian did not waste time. The first thing he did was to check the information related to Western salamanders. Because this kind of pet beast is relatively rare, there is not much relevant information on the website. Just when Li Qian thought that he would get nothing and return without any success this time, the name of a pet animal caught his eye. Frostfire Salamander. It was the name of the pet that caused the reaction on the mission panel. Ever since his eyes came into contact with the information about the Frostfire Salamander, the progress of the scientific research task, the second evolution method of koi, suddenly increased by 5 points. The task progress has reached 92%. As long as you invest 8 more achievement points, you can submit it. Li Qian was very happy to see the change in the task progress. He originally thought that this task might be stuck for a long time. After all, he didn't have much clue. But he didn't expect that the sudden attack by cultists would directly open up a new path for him. The reason why Li Qian was able to obtain 5 points of inspiration this time was ultimately inspired by the salamander-like pet beast last time. Entering the Lingshui City Breeders Association and checking the internal database of the association's website only speeds up the process. Otherwise, even if it is just an internal database of the third-level Urban Trainers Association website, there is no targeted direction, and searching randomly will be like finding a needle in a haystack. After thinking for a moment, Li Qiansui no longer hesitated and directly controlled the task panel with his mind, stacking 8 achievement points. With the consumption of achievement points, the progress of the task increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just the blink of an eye, it had already reached 100%. Submit the task. The task progress reached 100%, and Li Qian directly chose to submit. After the task was submitted, a similar scene appeared again, and a huge flow of information poured into his mind, which was then digested and absorbed. Li Qian closed his eyes and felt it quietly. He didn't know how much time had passed, but when he opened his eyes again, a complicated color flashed in his eyes. He has completely mastered the evolutionary path from koi carp to frostfire salamander. It was precisely because he had mastered and understood the key points that he struggled and hesitated. The koi carp evolves into the frostfire salamander through this evolutionary path. It's okay if it succeeds, but if it doesn't, the consequences will be serious. This path requires using the blood orchid potion as a trigger to activate the dragon bloodline in the koi's body, supplemented by a frostfire array, and through the impact of positive and negative attribute energy, breaking through the mysterious door in the koi's body and bringing it to the threshold of evolution. This way of evolution is extremely dangerous. Li Qian couldn't help but frown as he recalled the evolutionary information in his mind. Generally speaking, it is much simpler for a koi to evolve into a frostfire salamander than it is to evolve into a blue-scaled dragon. Of course, this is for beast masters. For pet beasts, although the steps are simple and the cost has been reduced, the risk has greatly increased. The evolution of the blue-scaled dragon requires qualifications and potential. If you cannot master the waterfall climbing skill and the fish jumping skill cannot reach the limit-breaking level, you will never be able to complete the evolution. But correspondingly, the side effects of this evolutionary path are also minimal. Even if it fails once, the most you can do is rest for some time, and you can continue to attack for the second or third time. But the path from koi to frostfire salamander is completely different. This path, in theory, has no qualification requirements. However, under the violent energy impact of the frostfire array, if the evolution is not completed, there will inevitably be hidden wounds that cannot be healed. Leaving hidden wounds means that the way forward is cut off, and there will be no hope of evolution in the future. It may even die directly in the process of evolution. It can be said that from koi carp to frostfire salamander, although it is a one-step road to reach heaven, if you fail, you will fall directly from heaven to hell. Once such a dangerous evolutionary path succeeds, the benefits will also be terrifying. Li Qian checked the information about the frostfire demon salamander, and was shocked to find that the potential of this evolved body was higher than that of the blue-scale dragon, reaching the 9th level of Overlord. Almost reaching the Emperor level. Of course, this may seem like a point, but it may also be a natural chasm. Although this step of evolution does not depend on the pet's qualifications, strictly speaking, it is closely related to the qualifications. Because this step mainly depends on the willpower of the pet beast. The stronger the willpower and the longer it lasts, the higher the probability of completing evolution. Based on the evolutionary information in his mind, Li Qian already knew that the average success probability of this evolutionary path was about 50%. That is half the probability. Half probability is no different from gambling. Li Qian shook his head and stopped thinking so much. Now, he didn't even master the frost fire array. Even if he was familiar with the evolutionary method, he couldn't put it into practice immediately. Of course, he can also choose to ask a beast master who is proficient in formations to take action. Li Qian planned to study for a while first. If he got started quickly, he would arrange it himself. If he got started slowly, he would ask someone to do it. After mastering the evolution method from koi to frostfire salamander, it was only a matter of time before the evolution was completed, so he was not in a hurry. After making some calculations, Li Qian finally took his mind off and focused on the achievement points. It stands to reason that if you complete the research and submit the task, you can at least add 1 achievement point. But the reality is that the balance of achievement points has not changed at all, there is still only 1 point. It seems that this kind of mission that relies on achievement points cannot be used to obtain achievement points. After figuring out what was going on, Li Qian couldn't help but have a wry smile on his lips. I worked hard to save 9 achievement points, and now, I only have 1 left. I'm really back before liberation. Thinking back, this task was finally accomplished through external force, so it is understandable that Golden Finger no longer gives achievement points. In addition to the information about the Frostfire Salamander, there is a lot of other information in the backend of the Breeders' Association website. This afternoon, Li Qian spent all his energy and time on this matter. Near dusk, when he was preparing to eat, he suddenly received a call from Zhou Weiping. The content of the chat on the phone was no different from what he had guessed. The director of the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau agreed to his conditions. In fact, anyone who is not stupid knows how to choose this kind of thing, so he is not surprised at all. This cooperation with the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau seems to be a bit of a loss for Li Qian, but in fact it is not a loss at all. After all, the actual cost of evolution is there. Even if you only charge 10 million in cultivation fees, it is 100% impossible to lose money. The most important thing is to ensure the safety of his parents, which is more important than anything else. With this layer of protection, he can go to the Beast Control University with peace of mind. After chatting with Zhou Weiping for a few words and asking him to convey his gratitude to the director of the Public Security Bureau, Li Qian hung up the phone. As for what the former said, their director would come to inspect in person, Li Qian didn't pay much attention to it. Just another person who wants to see is believe. When the time comes, just let Kizai and AFU show their faces. Li Qian, morning. Li Qian, good morning. Quote. When he came to school the next day, Li Qian found that his classmates were obviously more enthusiastic than before. He smiled and nodded in response, acting no different from usual. Between classes, 2 beautiful teachers, Zhu Bingqing and Chu Shiren, came together. In the office, Li Qian was a little panicked when facing the 2 of them. Why does this posture look a bit like a security guard interrogating a criminal? 2 teachers, what do you want to ask? The students will definitely tell you everything they know. Looking at the strange looks in their eyes, Li Qian's tone was slightly weaker. Tisk, 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 it's really amazing. My student, Zhu Bingqing, made such a big noise without making a sound. Teacher Zhu Bingqing was the first to speak, and looked Li Qian up and down, as if he was scanning a rare animal. When I was in high school, I figured out the evolution of koi, which is not a rare animal. She still remembers yesterday. When she heard the news, she was so shocked that her eyes almost dropped. Li Qian is learning and cultivating, something she has known for a long time. The reason I went to the pet pharmacy was probably to learn relevant knowledge. But it's still scary when it happens suddenly. Just like there are children playing with firecrackers and they don't care at all, but suddenly one day the child tells you that he built an atomic bomb. This is how Zhu Bingqing and Chu Shiren feel now. Teacher Zhu, please stop making fun of me. I was just lucky and hit the spot by mistake. After hearing what Teacher Zhu Bingqing said, Li Qian didn't know what was going on, so he hurriedly said modestly. So many trainers have studied this topic, how come you are so lucky, and you are the only one who got it by mistake? Teacher Chu Shiren shook his head and expressed a different view. Humility is a good thing, but being too modest is not good. That's what Teacher Chu taught. Li Qian heard the words and immediately nodded in agreement. Has the Breeders' Association contacted you? Teacher Chu Shiren continued to ask. Li Qian replied, I've already looked for him. Teacher Chu Shiren kept talking. Lingshui City has not produced a decent training talent for a long time. Your appearance is of great significance to the training association. They may still need you in the future, so if they provide resources, you can continue with peace of mind. Teacher Chu Shiren said concisely. In addition, I will help you win the rewards from the school. Thank you, Teacher Chu. Li Qian thanked him sincerely. Considering that your current level of education has surpassed both of ours, ordinary questions will not trouble you, we may not have touched on advanced questions. Teacher Zhu Bingqing said with emotion. But you can ask these questions, we may not be able to answer it, but we should be able to find someone who can help you. With the same thanks, Li Qian scratched his head and said with some embarrassment, Teacher Zhu, I really have a problem here. Tell me about it, Teacher Chu Shiren said. They are both more interested in Li Qian's problem. I want to learn the frost fire array. Li Qian said. He didn't hide anything, he went straight to the point and stated his purpose. Frost fire array. Teacher Zhu Bingqing's eyes suddenly brightened, and her eyes became more curious. Why do you want to learn the frost fire array? Although she is a meditation class teacher, Zhu Bingqing is different from other meditation class teachers in that she has a wide range of knowledge and has some knowledge of the frost fire array. The research I'm doing may require the use of the frost fire array. Li Qian explained. He didn't go into detail. He couldn't explain this kind of thing clearly in a few words. Can you tell me what the specific research is? Teacher Zhu Bingqing asked. Obviously, Li Qian's words made her more curious and wanted to see what surprises this student would bring her. While studying the evolution method from koi carp to blue-scaled dragon, students made different discoveries and felt that koi carp may have a second evolutionary route. Li Qian said truthfully. In order to avoid setting off another bomb silently when the time comes, it is better to give them a vaccination first. The second evolutionary route. Do you know what the evolved body is? Chu Shiren asked hurriedly. Originally, Li Qian said that he was lucky and accidentally hit the accident. Teacher Chu Shiren believed it to some extent. Even if it was not entirely true, it should still play a large role. Now listening to what he said, there is likely to be a second evolutionary path for koi, which directly overturns the previous idea. Li Qian's research on koi is much deeper than he imagined. The students guessed that it was probably the frost fire salamander. Li Qian said. Having said this, there was no need to hide it anymore. He simply revealed the truth. Of course, his words would not kill him. Frostfire salamander. As Li Qian expected, after the words fell, the two teachers showed shocked faces again. Frostfire salamander is an extremely rare western salamander-like pet beast. More importantly, its racial potential is as high as the 9th level of Overlord. It is said that the Frostfire salamander is the degraded body of the Holy Spirit level pet beast, the Ice and Fire Dragon. If this rumor is true, the value of Li Qian's research will be even more terrifying. If it can be researched and published, it will probably cause a shock to the entire beast-controlling world. Especially in the 4 major federations of Zilling, Ogama, Voles, and Holy Court. You must know that the countries to which these 4 federations belong were just to the west of the ancestral star before the federation's history, and the legend of dragons in their countries has a long history. For them, the Western dragon is not only a symbol of great strength, but also a totem symbol. A bit like Eastern Dragon to Eastern Shah and Kamikaze. To what extent has the research reached now? Chu Shiren asked softly. She tried to contain the shock in her heart and behaved no differently than usual. But the messy heartbeat betrayed her emotions. I've gained something, but I'm currently stuck on the Frostfire array. Li Qian said a little vaguely. There is nothing we can do about this. It would be too shocking to tell the truth directly and tell the 2 teachers that he had completed the research. If you complete the research and start the evolution test, you won't mind us going to observe it, right? Teacher Zhu Bingqing said with a smile. Welcome to the extreme, Li Qian said without hesitation. As for the Frostfire array, I really know someone who is better at it and should be able to help you. Chu Shiren frowned and thought. Then I'll trouble you, Teacher Chu. Li Qian said. He did not refuse. Being assisted by a beast master who was good at this and teaching him step by step would definitely help him master this magic circle quickly. After chatting for a while, it was almost noon, and Li Qian left the office. Are you going to find that annoying guy for Li Qian? Zhu Bingqing asked with a smile after Li Qian left. There is no conflict between me and him, let alone dislike. Chu Shiren said lightly. Really? An expression that looked like a smile but not a smile appeared on Zhu Bingqing's face. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.